We begin a quiet journey, drifting back through the currents of time to an age distant and richly textured. Our focus rests gently upon a mind that bloomed with an extraordinary luminescence, a spirit that embraced the vastness of human inquiry. We speak of Leonardo da Vinci, not as a figure encased in the hardened amber of myth, nor as an icon whose brilliance blinds the understanding. Instead, we shall consider him as a man, a human being whose existence unfolded across the landscape of the Italian Renaissance. This is an invitation to observe, to ponder, and to allow the gentle rhythm of his story to unfold within the quiet spaces of the mind. We will trace the arc of a life lived with an insatiable curiosity, a profound capacity for observation, and an unwavering commitment to understanding the world in its most intricate detail. It is a story that reaches across more than 5 centuries, its echoes still resonating in the present day. Let us set aside the common perceptions, the hurried summaries, and the grand pronouncements. Instead, we shall approach this remarkable individual with a sense of calm inquiry, allowing the historical record to guide our contemplation. We will move through the years of his life with a measured pace, observing the environments that shaped him, the challenges that tested him, and the singular genius that propelled him. This is not a tale of dramatic peaks and valleys, but rather a steady, unhurried exploration of a life that was, in its essence, a continuous unfolding of discovery. Allow your thoughts to settle and prepare to embark upon this tranquil passage into the past. Our journey into the life of Leonardo begins in a modest corner of Tuscany, a place known as Vinci. This was not a bustling metropolis, nor a centre of grand intellectual ferment. Instead, it was a small, unassuming village, nestled amidst the rolling hills that characterize the Tuscan landscape. In the mid-15th century, Vinci was a quiet agricultural settlement, its rhythms dictated by the seasons and the demands of the land. Imagine the gentle contours of the countryside surrounding this village. Olive groves, ancient and gnarled, stretched across the slopes, their silver-green leaves shimmering in the sunlight. Vineyards, meticulously tended, carpeted the hillsides, promising the rich bounty of the harvest. Below, the Arno River, a vital artery of the region, flowed with a steady, unhurried grace. The air would have carried the subtle sense of damp earth, wild herbs, and the distant wood smoke from hearths. The sounds of Vinci were those of rural life, the lowing of cattle, the distant bleating of sheep, the chirping of cicadas in the warmth of the afternoon, and the occasional creak of a cart along an unpaved track. There would have been the murmur of human voices, perhaps, but never a clamour, never a rush. Life moved at a deliberate pace, interwoven with the natural world. This was the quiet crucible in which young Leonardo's early years unfolded. He was surrounded by simplicity and the profound beauty of nature, the intricate patterns of leaves, the flight of birds, the subtle shifts of light across the landscape. These were his initial classroom. The absence of urban distractions allowed for an intimate connection with the environment, fostering an observational eye that would define his later work. It was in this tranquil setting that the first seeds of his extraordinary mind were sown, nurtured by the stillness and the unending wonders of the natural world. It was in this tranquil setting of Vinci, in the spring of 1452, on April 15th, that Leonardo came into the world. His birth, however, was marked by a particular circumstance. He was an illegitimate son. His father was Ser Piero da Vinci, a notary from a prominent local family, and his mother was a peasant woman named Caterina. This status, while not uncommon in Renaissance Italy, carried with it certain societal implications. For a child born outside of marriage, the path through life could often be more winding, less clearly defined. Yet for Leonardo, the immediate consequences were handled with a degree of quiet pragmatism that was characteristic of the era. He was initially separated from his mother, a common practice designed to integrate such children into the more established paternal household. Caterina herself would soon marry a local farmer, establishing her own family. Young Leonardo was taken into the home of his paternal grandfather, Antonio da Vinci, also a notary. This household, while respectable, was not one of great luxury, but rather of comfortable bourgeois standing. Here he joined his grandfather, his father Ser Piero, and his father's wife, Albiera Amadori, who remained childless. This integration into the patriarchal family provided a stable, if somewhat complex environment for his early development. Yet within this household, Leonardo's illegitimacy was not a source of overt stigma or dramatic conflict, at least not in the daily life of the family. He was accepted and raised alongside his legitimate half-siblings, who would arrive later as Ser Piero began to marry and have more children. The atmosphere would have been one of routine and the quiet expectations of a provincial family. A notable aspect of his upbringing in his grandfather's home was the absence of a formal, classical education. Unlike legitimate sons of notaries, Leonardo was not destined for the typical Latin schooling that would lead to a profession like law or medicine. Instead, his early instruction would have been rudimentary, focusing on basic literacy, arithmetic, and perhaps some practical skills. This lack of formal academic rigour, however, inadvertently allowed for a different kind of learning to flourish, one driven by innate curiosity and direct observation of the world around him, unburdened by prescribed curricula or conventional intellectual pathways. In the quiet landscape surrounding Vinci, during his earliest childhood, Leonardo began to cultivate a profound inner world. His days were not filled with the structured lessons of a schoolroom, but rather with the boundless classroom of nature itself. From a very young age, an innate curiosity propelled him to look deeper, to question the superficial appearance of things, and to seek the underlying mechanisms of the world. The flight of birds captured his imagination with particular intensity. He would spend long stretches of time watching them, observing the subtle shifts in their wings, the way air currents lifted and carried them, and the intricate dance of their feathers. This was not merely casual observation. It was a deep, almost meditative study of movement and aerodynamics, the silent genesis of a lifelong fascination with flight. Water, too, held a captivating allure, whether it was the gentle flow of a stream, the swirling patterns of eddies, or the way light refracted through its surface. Leonardo found endless patterns and mysteries within its fluid motion. He would observe how pebbles disturbed its calm, how droplets formed and fell, and how currents carved their paths through the earth. These early encounters with water's dynamic nature would later inform his extensive studies of hydraulics and his designs for canals and locks. The diverse flora of the Tuscan countryside also drew his contemplative gaze. He noticed the delicate structures of leaves, the intricate arrangements of petals, and the varied textures of bark. Each plant, each flower presented a unique design, a testament to nature's complex artistry. The interplay of light and shadow across these natural forms was another source of endless study, revealing how illumination shaped perception and revealed volume. These were the foundations of a solitary and contemplative nature. Leonardo was not merely seeing, he was observing with an intensity that few possess. He was absorbing, processing, and internalizing the intricate details of his surroundings, building a vast mental library of natural phenomena. This quiet period of childhood, immersed in the unhurried rhythms of the natural world, was essential in shaping the extraordinary mind that would later seek to unravel the universe's many secrets. The household of Leonardo's paternal grandparents, Antonio and Lucia, offered a quiet and remarkably stable environment for the young boy. It was not a place of great wealth or aristocratic pretension, but rather one characterized by a grounded simplicity and the steady rhythms of rural life. Within these unassuming walls, Leonardo was afforded a particular kind of freedom, one that would prove profoundly influential on his developing mind. Unlike many legitimate children of the era, who were often subjected to rigorous classical schooling from an early age, Leonardo was largely spared such pressures. His grandparents, perhaps due to his illegitimate status or simply their own practical inclinations, did not push him towards the traditional academic curriculum of Latin, rhetoric, and formal philosophy. This absence of conventional intellectual demands, rather than being a deficit, created a fertile ground for his natural talents to slowly and organically unfurl. In this less structured setting, his innate curiosity was not channeled into prescribed subjects, but was instead allowed to roam freely. He could spend hours observing the world around him, drawing, experimenting, and contemplating without the constant expectation of producing academic results or conforming to established modes of thought. This gentle upbringing fostered an independence of mind, encouraging him to trust his own observations and inquiries above inherited knowledge. The quiet domesticity of his grandparents' home provided a safe harbour for his burgeoning intellect. There was an unspoken permission to explore, to tinker, and to simply be. This was a crucial contrast to the more rigid and often competitive environments in which legitimate children of similar social standing might have found themselves. Their lives were frequently mapped out by societal expectations, preparing them for specific roles in law, commerce, or the church. Leonardo's path, however, remained undefined by such external pressures. His grandparents, in their quiet provision, inadvertently gifted him the space and time to develop his unique way of seeing and understanding. They offered a foundation of security and acceptance, allowing his mind to wander, to question, and to connect disparate observations into a cohesive worldview. And this unassuming upbringing thus became a silent catalyst for the extraordinary breadth of his future endeavours, proving that sometimes the greatest influence comes not from explicit instruction, but from the quiet cultivation of freedom. Amidst the quiet routines of his early life in Vinci, the first subtle indications of Leonardo's artistic inclination began to emerge. These were not grand pronouncements or sudden revelations, but rather the quiet, persistent habits of a child drawn to visual expression. One might imagine him, in those unhurried days, finding solace in the act of mark-making, perhaps on the smooth, sun-warmed stones of the village, or with a piece of charcoal on a spare scrap of parchment. His hands began to translate the world he observed into line and form. He would have been captivated by the intricate patterns of leaves, the precise anatomy of a bird in flight, or the subtle shifts of light and shadow on a nearby hill. These visual impressions, absorbed with such intensity during his solitary wanderings, naturally sought an outlet. The act of drawing became a silent language, a way for him to process and record the endless stream of details that filled his perceptive mind. It is said that his father, Ser Piero, a notary by profession, gradually became aware of this nascent talent. While his own work involved the precise crafting of legal documents, Ser Piero possessed an appreciation for various forms of skill. He would have observed his young son's unusual aptitude, perhaps noticing the accuracy and sensitivity in his rudimentary sketches. These were not the careless scribbles of an ordinary child, but rather attempts, however early, to capture the essence of what he saw with a remarkable fidelity. This recognition by his father was a gentle affirmation, a quiet acknowledgement that Leonardo possessed a gift beyond the ordinary. It was not a call to immediate fame or a dramatic redirection of his life's course, but rather a slow dawning understanding that this boy, with his keen eyes and steady hand, held a unique potential. The simple act of drawing initially a private compulsion, began to acquire a subtle significance, hinting at a future pathway that would diverge from the more conventional expectations of his time and place. These early stirrings were the quiet prelude to a lifelong dedication to the visual arts, born from observation and nurtured by an innate desire to render the world anew. As the mid-15th century unfolded, the city of Florence stood as a beacon of progress and profound transformation. It was a place where the echoes of ancient thought resonated with the fresh stirrings of new ideas, creating a vibrant tapestry of human endeavour. For a young man like Leonardo, leaving the quietude of Vinci, Florence would have presented a sensory landscape of astonishing complexity and stimulation. The city itself was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, its skyline dominated by the majestic dome of the Duomo, a testament to Filippo Brunelleschi's audacious vision and engineering prowess. Stone palaces, built by wealthy merchant families, lined narrow, bustling streets, their facades adorned with intricate carvings and the coats of arms of powerful dynasties. Walking through Florence meant moving amidst a living museum, where every corner seemed to reveal another triumph of architecture or sculpture. The soundscape of Florence was a constant symphony of human activity. The clamour of the Mercato Vecchio, the old market, would have filled the air with the cries of vendors hawking their wares, fresh produce, exotic spices, and bolts of luxurious textiles. The rhythmic clang of blacksmiths at their anvils, the distant peal of church bells marking the hours, and the murmur of countless conversations in the streets all contributed to a rich, immersive auditory experience. Amidst this hum, one could also discern the quiet scratching of pens in scriptoriums, the rustle of pages in nascent libraries, and the focused tapping of sculptors' chisels against marble. Beyond its physical grandeur and commercial dynamism, Florence was an unparalleled intellectual crucible. It was the undisputed heart of the Renaissance, where scholars rediscovered classical texts, philosophers debated the nature of humanity, and artists pushed the boundaries of visual expression. The patronage of powerful families, most notably the Medici, fostered an environment where creativity was not merely tolerated, but actively celebrated and cultivated. This patronage drew the finest minds and most skilled hands from across Italy and beyond, gathering them in a city that pulsed with innovation. For a mind as innately curious and observant as Leonardo's, Florence offered an inexhaustible source of inspiration and learning. It was a place where art, commerce, and intellect intertwined, creating a fertile ground for genius to flourish. The city, in its very essence, was awakening to new possibilities, shedding the shadows of the past and embracing a future defined by human achievement. Into this vibrant, bustling, and intellectually charged environment, the young Leonardo da Vinci was about to step, poised to absorb its boundless energies and, in time, to profoundly reshape its artistic and scientific landscape. Having arrived in the bustling heart of Florence, Leonardo's path soon led him to the esteemed workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio. It was around the years 1466 to 1469 that the young Leonardo, still in his mid-teens, formally entered this vibrant artistic hub as an apprentice. His father, Ser Piero, recognizing his son's innate artistic inclinations, had arranged this placement, a customary practice for aspiring artists of the era. Verrocchio's bottega, as such workshops were known, was far more than a mere painting studio. It was a dynamic, comprehensive centre of creative production, a true microcosm of Renaissance craftsmanship. Under Verrocchio's direct guidance, a diverse array of projects unfolded simultaneously. Here, apprentices learned not only the delicate art of brushwork and the meticulous preparation of pigments, but also the rigorous discipline of sculpture. working with both marble and bronze. The air would have carried the subtle scent of linseed oil and turpentine, mingling with the metallic tang of molten bronze and the fine dust of carved stone. The workshop was a place of constant activity and varied learning. One day, a project might involve the casting of a grand bronze statue, requiring knowledge of metallurgy, mould making, and the precise control of intense heat. The next might see the apprentices preparing gesso panels for painting, grinding vibrant minerals into fine powders to create luminous colours, or meticulously gilding a wooden frame. They would learn to draw from live models, to understand anatomy, and to master perspective, all fundamental skills for creating convincing illusions on canvas or in stone. Verrocchio himself was a master of many disciplines, a goldsmith, a sculptor, and a painter of considerable repute. His practical, hands-on approach to teaching instilled in his apprentices a deep understanding of materials and techniques. Leonardo would have been exposed to the entire spectrum of artistic creation, from the initial conceptual sketch to the final polished surface. This immersive environment fostered a broad technical proficiency that would prove invaluable throughout his career, grounding his extraordinary conceptual leaps in a solid foundation of artisanal skill. The workshop of Verrocchio was not merely a school, it was a living, breathing laboratory of art, where young minds like Leonardo's were forged and refined through diligent, practical engagement with the crafts. Within Verrocchio's bustling workshop, Leonardo systematically absorbed a remarkable breadth of skills, far beyond the typical scope of a painter's apprentice. His initial training encompassed the fundamental principles of drawing, learning to render forms with precision and expressiveness. He meticulously practiced sketching from classical sculptures, from live models, and from nature, developing the keen observational eye that would define his later work. This foundational skill was paramount, as drawing served as the bedrock for all other artistic endeavours. Beyond drawing, Leonardo delved deeply into the practicalities of painting techniques. He learned the intricate process of preparing wooden panels and canvases, mixing pigments with binders to achieve specific hues and textures, and mastering the application of tempera and increasingly oil paints. The slow, deliberate layering of oil allowed for subtle gradations of light and shadow, a technique he would later elevate to unparalleled heights. However, Verrocchio's influence extended well beyond two-dimensional art. The workshop's diverse commissions meant Leonardo also gained significant experience in sculpture. He would have participated in the modelling of clay, the carving of stone, and the complex procedures of bronze casting. This exposure to three-dimensional form deepened his understanding of volume, weight, and the way light interacted with solid objects, insights that profoundly informed his painting. Moreover, the interdisciplinary nature of Verrocchio's workshop introduced Leonardo to nascent engineering principles. The construction of large-scale sculptures, the operation of hoists and pulleys, and the precise measurements required for architectural elements all contributed to a practical understanding of mechanics and structure. This early exposure fostered his lifelong fascination with machines and their underlying physics. Verrocchio himself embodied an artistic philosophy that blurred the lines between disciplines. He saw art as encompassing all forms of creation, from the delicate filigree of a goldsmith to the monumental scale of a public monument. This holistic perspective profoundly shaped Leonardo's own interdisciplinary approach, encouraging him to view art, science, and engineering not as separate fields, but as interconnected facets of a single quest for understanding the world. A notable example of this collaborative learning environment is found in Verrocchio's Baptism of Christ. It is widely believed that the young Leonardo contributed to this painting, specifically rendering the exquisitely delicate angel on the far left. The subtle sfumato in the angel's face, the soft play of light, and the gentle curl of its hair reveal a mastery that already hinted at Leonardo's unique genius, as standing in quiet contrast to the more traditional brushwork of his master. This early contribution offered a glimpse into the extraordinary artistic journey that lay ahead, shaped by the diverse skills and profound influence of Andrea del Verrocchio. During Leonardo's formative years in Florence, the city-state existed under the pervasive, yet often subtle, influence of the Medici family. Though Florence maintained the outward appearance of a republic, with its elected councils and civic institutions, the Medici held the reins of power with remarkable dexterity. Their authority was not based on titles of nobility or inherited monarchy, but rather on immense wealth derived from banking, astute political manoeuvring, and a deep understanding of human nature. At the head of this powerful family during much of Leonardo's early adulthood, was Lorenzo de' Medici, often referred to as Lorenzo the Magnificent. He was a figure of profound importance, not only for Florence but for the entire Italian Renaissance. Lorenzo possessed a cultivated intellect and a genuine appreciation for beauty and knowledge. His court was a magnet for poets, philosophers, artists and scholars from across Italy and beyond. He understood that patronage of the arts and sciences was not merely a matter of personal taste, but a powerful tool for enhancing Florence's prestige and consolidating his family's influence. Under Lorenzo's discerning eye, artists like Botticelli, Michelangelo, and in time Leonardo himself found opportunities to refine their craft and produce works of enduring significance. Lorenzo's generosity extended to the founding of academies and libraries, and fostering an environment where intellectual inquiry and artistic innovation could flourish. He meticulously collected ancient manuscripts and artifacts, creating a rich repository of classical knowledge that inspired a new generation of humanists. This period was characterized by a delicate balance of power, both within Florence and across the wider Italian peninsula. Lorenzo skillfully navigated the complex web of alliances and rivalries among the various Italian city-states, such as Venice, Milan, Naples, and the Papal States, often acting as a peacemaker and diplomat. His policies aimed to maintain a relative peace that allowed commerce and culture to thrive. Florence, under Medici guidance, thus played a pivotal role in the Italian political tapestry. It was a beacon of Renaissance humanism, its economic prosperity fueling its cultural output. The city's wealth, combined with its intellectual vibrancy, made it a crucial player in the intricate diplomacy and occasional conflicts that defined 15th century Italy. This stable, yet subtly controlled environment provided the backdrop for Leonardo's burgeoning career, shaping the opportunities and challenges he would encounter as he moved from apprentice to independent master. Florence in the 15th century possessed a distinct and intricate social fabric, a tapestry woven from various classes and institutions that governed daily life and shaped individual destinies. At the pinnacle of this hierarchy, below the ruling Medici, resided the wealthy merchant and banking families. These individuals, with their vast fortunes, were the primary patrons of the arts, commissioning grand palaces, religious works, and personal portraits. Their affluence not only dictated fashion and social trends, but also profoundly influenced the city's political and cultural direction. Below this elite class were the numerous guilds, which formed the backbone of Florentine society and economy. These were powerful organizations, each representing a specific trade or profession, such as wool merchants, silk manufacturers, bankers, apothecaries, and even artists. Membership in a guild was essential for practicing a trade and offered a degree of social standing and protection. The major guilds, like the Arte della Lana, Wool Guild, or the Arte della Seta, Silk Guild, wielded significant political influence, often holding seats on the city's governing councils. For an aspiring artist like Leonardo, joining a guild, specifically the Compagnia di San Luca, the Painters Guild, was a crucial step towards independent practice and establishing a professional identity. Daily life for most Florentines revolved around work, family, and religious observance. The city's bustling streets were alive with the sounds of commerce, the cries of vendors, and the chatter of citizens. Festivals and religious processions were frequent occurrences, providing moments of communal celebration and spectacle. Education, while not universal, was valued, especially among the merchant class, who needed literacy and numeracy for their businesses. The intellectual elite, comprising humanists, scholars, and philosophers, often gathered in private academies or within the Medici court. They engaged in robust discussions about classical texts, new scientific theories, and the nature of humanity, contributing to the vibrant intellectual atmosphere that permeated Florence. This intellectual ferment, coupled with the patronage of the wealthy and the structured opportunities offered by the guilds, created a unique environment. For a young artist, this meant both opportunity and challenge. Talent was recognized and rewarded, but success depended heavily on securing patronage, gaining guild approval, and navigating the social expectations of the time. The ability to appeal to the tastes of the merchant class, to understand their desires for both piety and earthly splendor, was paramount. Leonardo's journey would require him to master not only his craft, but also the intricate social codes of this vibrant Renaissance city. Upon his official acceptance into the Guild of St. Luke in 1472, a Leonardo da Vinci transitioned from apprentice to independent master, a significant milestone in his artistic journey. This elevation meant he could now accept commissions under his own name, marking the beginning of his professional career beyond the direct supervision of Verrocchio. Yet, this newfound freedom also brought with it the pressures of establishing a distinct reputation in a city brimming with artistic talent. One of his notable early independent works from this period is the Annunciation. This large panel painting, likely commissioned for a monastery or church, showcases his developing mastery of perspective, light, and anatomical detail. The figures of the Archangel Gabriel and the Virgin Mary are rendered with a delicate grace, set within a meticulously detailed garden landscape. While still showing influences from his workshop training, the Annunciation reveals Leonardo's emerging personal style, particularly in the subtle rendering of drapery and the atmospheric quality of the distant trees. Another important work from this early independent phase is the portrait of Ginevra de' Benci. This painting, likely commissioned around 1474 to 1478, represents one of Leonardo's earliest attempts at capturing a sitter's psychological depth. The young woman's serene yet somewhat distant expression, framed by the intricate curls of her hair and the juniper bush behind her, suggests a quiet introspection. This work exemplifies his early experiments with chiaroscuro, the interplay of light and shadow, to model form and evoke mood. Despite these significant commissions, the initial years as an independent master were not without their challenges. Florence was a competitive artistic landscape, and Leonardo, though immensely talented, was still a relatively young artist seeking to carve out his own niche. He faced the need to secure a steady stream of patronage, to differentiate his style from that of his revered master, and to demonstrate his capacity for large-scale projects. These early works were crucial steps in building his portfolio and showcasing his unique vision, laying the groundwork for the more ambitious undertakings that would define his later career. They were testaments to his burgeoning skill and his quiet determination to leave his own indelible mark on the art world. In 1481, Leonardo da Vinci received a significant commission from the Augustinian monks of San Donato, a scoppetto for an altarpiece depicting the adoration of the Magi. This project offered him an opportunity to create a monumental work that would fully showcase his evolving artistic vision and departure from conventional approaches. Though ultimately left unfinished, this painting, known simply as the Adoration of the Magi, remains a profound testament to his innovative compositional ideas and his deep understanding of human emotion. The work's central innovation lies in its dynamic and complex arrangement of figures. Instead of a static hierarchical scene, Leonardo conceived a swirling vortex of humanity converging around the Virgin and Child. The traditional narrative elements are present, but they are enveloped in a rich tapestry of human response. The Magi themselves are depicted with a sense of wonder and reverence, their faces reflecting a range of emotions from awe to quiet contemplation. Surrounding them, a multitude of figures, young and old, express curiosity, skepticism, and adoration, creating a vibrant psychological landscape. In the background, two distinct scenes unfold: a ruined classical building symbolizing the decay of the old order, and a skirmish of men on horseback, perhaps representing the turmoil of the world that the arrival of the Christ child is meant to transcend. These elements add layers of symbolic meaning, transforming the adoration from a simple devotional image into a profound meditation on humanity's spiritual journey. Even in its unfinished state, and rendered primarily in monochromatic browns and ochres, the Adoration of the Magi possesses an extraordinary emotional depth. Leonardo utilized his developing sfumato technique, subtly blurring outlines and transitions, to create a sense of atmospheric unity and to soften the figures, making them appear more lifelike and psychologically resonant. The raw, exposed underdrawing reveals his meticulous planning and his keen interest in capturing the expressive potential of the human form and face. This ambitious undertaking reveals Leonardo's increasing desire to move beyond merely depicting a scene, towards exploring the inner lives and reactions of his subjects. It shows his commitment to integrating scientific observation with artistic expression, to portray not just what the eye sees, but what the heart feels. The Adoration of the Magi stands as a pivotal work in his early independent career, a powerful declaration of his unique artistic philosophy and a glimpse into the boundless potential of his genius. As Leonardo's artistic endeavours deepened and matured, a subtle but significant shift began to occur within his private studies. His prolific notebooks, initially serving as repositories for artistic ideas, preparatory sketches, and observations pertinent to painting, gradually started to expand their scope. A quiet yet profound scientific curiosity began to take root and flourish, intertwining itself with his artistic pursuits in an increasingly inseparable manner. This evolving interest manifested first in the more systematic recording of phenomena that had always captivated him. His innate fascination with the natural world, his cultivated since his childhood in Vinci, now found a more formalized outlet. He began to observe the flight of birds not merely for the beauty of their movement, but to decipher the mechanics of their wings and the aerodynamics of their bodies. The intricate patterns of water flow, the way light fell upon a surface, or the precise structure of a plant stem became subjects for detailed examination, documented with both descriptive text and precise drawings. Anatomy, in particular, began to draw his sustained attention. Initially driven by the painter's need to understand the human form for realistic depiction, his studies transcended mere artistic utility. He sought to comprehend the underlying structure of muscles, bones, and tendons, meticulously sketching their interconnections and functions. These early anatomical drawings, while still somewhat rudimentary, reflect a growing desire to understand the internal mechanisms that governed external appearance. Similarly, his observations of light and shadow, crucial for creating depth and realism in painting, expanded into a deeper inquiry into the principles of optics. He pondered how the human eye perceived colour and form, and how light interacted with different materials. Botany, too, evolved beyond the simple depiction of foliage. He started to classify plants, to understand their growth patterns, and to document their varied forms with a scientific rigour that anticipated later botanical studies. This quiet expansion of his intellectual landscape marked the beginning of Leonardo's journey into a truly interdisciplinary approach to knowledge. Among the burgeoning scientific interests that began to fill Leonardo's notebooks, the study of anatomy held a particular compelling fascination. His initial explorations into the inner workings of living beings likely commenced with a careful observation of animals. He would have studied their musculature and skeletal structures, perhaps sketching the dissected limbs of horses or the internal organs of birds, seeking to understand the mechanics that allowed for movement and life itself. These early animal studies provided a foundational understanding of comparative anatomy, revealing shared principles across different species. Yet his ambition extended beyond the animal kingdom. Driven by an insatiable desire to understand the human form in its entirety, both external and internal, Leonardo began to undertake the arduous and, for his time, often controversial practice of human dissection. This was not a common endeavour for artists, and it required a certain resolve and resourcefulness to acquire subjects and suitable environments for such work. Each dissection was approached with a reverence for the subject, and an unwavering commitment to precise observation. His drawings from this period are characterized by an extraordinary meticulousness. With pen and ink he peeled back layers of skin, muscle, and tissue, revealing the intricate network of veins, arteries, nerves, and bones beneath. Every tendon, every ligament, every minute detail of the skeletal structure was rendered with a clarity and accuracy that was unprecedented. These were not mere diagrams, they were attempts to capture the dynamic interplay of systems, to understand how each part contributed to the whole. He sought to comprehend the mechanics of a joint, the origin and insertion of a muscle, and the path of a nerve, driven by a profound need to grasp the very essence of life's intricate machinery. His questions moved beyond surface appearance, delving into function. How did the heart pump blood? How did the lungs facilitate breath? What gave the hand its remarkable dexterity? These were the inquiries that propelled his anatomical explorations, pushing him to dissect, observe, and draw with an intensity that transcended the requirements of mere artistic representation, laying the groundwork for a scientific pursuit that would occupy him for decades. By the early 1480s, a quiet shift began to occur in Leonardo's perspective on his place within Florence. Though he had established himself as an independent master and had undertaken significant commissions, a sense of limitation perhaps began to settle upon him. Florence, while a vibrant artistic hub, was also a highly competitive environment, with many established masters and a distinct preference for traditional modes of expression that did not always align with Leonardo's increasingly radical and experimental approach. The pace of commissions, too, may not have satisfied his expansive ambitions. His gaze gradually turned northward, towards the Duchy of Milan, a powerful and increasingly prosperous city-state ruled by Ludovico Sforza, known as Il Moro. Milan presented itself as a realm of fresh opportunities, a place where grander projects and a different kind of patronage might be found. Ludovico Sforza was not merely a patron of the arts, he was a leader with vast ambitions, deeply interested in military engineering, architecture, and civic planning, fields that resonated deeply with Leonardo's own widening scientific and technical interests. The appeal of Ludovico Sforza's court was multifaceted. It promised not only artistic commissions on a larger scale than those typically available in Florence, but also a potential platform for Leonardo's burgeoning talents in engineering, invention, and scientific inquiry. It was a place where a polymath like Leonardo, whose mind constantly traversed the boundaries between art and science, might truly flourish. The Sforza court offered an environment where practical innovation was valued alongside aesthetic brilliance. Thus, around 1482 or 1483, Leonardo made the thoughtful decision to depart from Florence. This was not an abrupt or impulsive move, but rather a considered step, a quiet calculation of where his diverse talents could be most effectively utilized, and where his intellectual curiosity might find greater scope. He composed a letter to Ludovico Sforza, a remarkable document outlining his wide-ranging skills, from military engineering and bridge building to sculpture and painting, presenting himself as a universal genius capable of contributing to many facets of the ducal court. It was an application for a position not just as an artist, but as a comprehensive problem solver and innovator. This letter, a testament to his self-awareness and ambition, effectively paved his way to Milan and a new chapter of his extraordinary life. The decision to leave Florence for Milan was accompanied by a strategic presentation of Leonardo's capabilities, encapsulated in a remarkable letter addressed to Ludovico Sforza. This document, believed to have been written around 1482 or 1483, was not merely a polite introduction, but a comprehensive and persuasive catalogue of his diverse skills, designed to appeal directly to the needs and ambitions of the Duke of Milan. Leonardo began by listing his talents in military engineering, a field of particular interest to Ludovico. He meticulously detailed his ability to design light, strong and portable bridges for military movements, and to create methods for destroying enemy bridges. He spoke of developing new types of cannon, easy to transport and highly effective, and of inventing covered chariots, secure and unassailable, capable of breaking through enemy lines. His proposals extended to creating various machines for offence and defence during sieges, demonstrating a deep understanding of contemporary warfare and a visionary approach to its mechanisms. Beyond the martial arts, Leonardo also presented his mastery in hydraulic engineering, essential for a city like Milan with its network of canals. He offered to design new methods for diverting rivers and constructing efficient waterways, showcasing his practical ingenuity. Only after elaborating on these extensive engineering and military proficiencies did Leonardo turn to his artistic talents. He stated his capacity to execute works in sculpture, whether in marble, bronze, or clay, and to create paintings that could stand comparison with any other master. He specifically mentioned his ability to undertake the equestrian monument of Francesco Sforza, Ludovico's father, a project of immense prestige and scale that was known to be desired by the Duke. This careful sequencing of his skills was a deliberate choice, reflecting his understanding of Ludovico's priorities and his own ambition to be more than just a painter. The letter was a testament to Leonardo's self-awareness and his keen understanding of courtly politics. It presented him not as a mere artisan, but as a versatile genius, a problem solver, and an innovator whose comprehensive abilities could serve the Duke in numerous capacities. This carefully crafted document played a crucial role in securing his place in Milan, or opening the door to a period of unprecedented productivity and intellectual exploration under the patronage of the Sforza court. Upon his arrival in Milan, Leonardo da Vinci found himself immersed in an environment distinctly different from the intellectual and artistic hub of Florence. The Sforza court, presided over by Ludovico Sforza, was a centre of considerable opulence and political ambition. It was a place where display and grandeur held significant sway, and where the arts were often employed to enhance the Duke's prestige and power. Florence, under the Medici, had fostered a more communal and intellectually driven artistic scene, where commissions often arose from merchant families, guilds, or the church, and where philosophical debate and classical revival were central. In Milan, the focus shifted more directly to princely patronage, with the Duke as the primary arbiter of taste and the main source of commissions. This meant that an artist's role extended beyond mere creation. It involved contributing to the spectacle and magnificence of court life. Leonardo's duties in Milan were consequently far more varied than those of a typical Florentine painter. While he would still receive commissions for altarpieces and portraits, his skills were also sought for designing elaborate court festivals, theatrical sets, and intricate costumes. He was tasked with creating mechanical devices and automata to entertain guests, and with planning and overseeing architectural and engineering projects that served both practical and symbolic purposes for the duchy. The Sforza court was thus a dynamic, if sometimes demanding, place for an artist of Leonardo's temperament. It provided ample opportunities for him to apply his multidisciplinary approach, blending his artistic vision with his engineering prowess. The political intrigue, while ever present, did not seem to deter his focus on innovation. Instead, the court acted as a grand stage for experimentation, a place where his ideas could take tangible form in ways that might have been less feasible in the more established traditional artistic circles of Florence. This new environment not only challenged Leonardo, but also allowed his unique blend of talents to flourish, adapting to the specific demands of a powerful Renaissance ruler. Among Leonardo da Vinci's initial significant artistic undertakings in Milan was the commission for the altarpiece known as the Virgin of the Rocks. This work, while intended for the Confraternity of the Immaculate Conception, offered him an opportunity to explore new dimensions in painting, moving beyond the established conventions of his Florentine training. Two versions of this painting exist, a testament to the complex contractual agreements and Leonardo's evolving artistic vision during this period. In the Virgin of the Rocks, Leonardo departed from traditional hierarchical compositions, placing the figures within a mysterious, almost primeval grotto. The setting is not merely a backdrop but an active participant in the narrative, with geological formations and flowing water creating a sense of ancient, untouched nature. His innovative use of light and shadow is particularly striking. Light filters through unseen openings, subtly illuminating the figures and casting deep, and soft shadows that define their forms without harsh outlines. This gentle interplay contributes to the painting's ethereal atmosphere. The figures themselves, Mary, the Christ child, the infant John the Baptist, and an angel, emerge from the dimness with a soft luminosity. Their gestures are tender and interconnected, forming a harmonious pyramidal composition that draws the viewer's eye through the scene. Here, one can observe the nascent development of his renowned sfumato technique. Sfumato, meaning soft or blurred in Italian, involves the delicate blending of colours and tones, creating subtle gradations that eliminate sharp contours and allow forms to merge imperceptibly into one another. This technique imparts a sense of softness and depth, as making the figures appear more lifelike and imbuing the entire scene with an enigmatic quality. The faces, particularly, exhibit this gentle blurring, suggesting a veiled inner emotion rather than a stark expression. Through the Virgin of the Rocks, Leonardo began to refine this signature approach, laying the groundwork for the atmospheric depth and psychological subtlety that would define his later masterpieces. Among the most ambitious projects Leonardo undertook for Ludovico Sforza was the colossal bronze equestrian statue intended to honour the Duke's father, Francesco Sforza. This monumental undertaking, known as the Sforza horse, occupied a significant portion of Leonardo's time and intellect during his Milanese years. It was conceived as one of the largest equestrian statues ever attempted, a testament to Sforza family prestige and a challenge to the artistic and engineering capabilities of the age. The sheer scale of the proposed monument presented immense technical hurdles. Leonardo envisioned a horse standing over 7 meters tall, requiring an unprecedented amount of bronze for its casting. Such a feat demanded innovative solutions in metallurgy, mold making, and the logistics of handling such a vast quantity of molten metal. He immersed himself in the study of horses, producing hundreds of preparatory drawings that meticulously captured their anatomy, musculature, and movement. These studies went beyond mere artistic rendering, delving into a scientific understanding of equine physiology, often depicting the animals in dynamic poses, rearing or galloping. Leonardo's notebooks from this period are filled with detailed sketches and calculations related to the project. He explored various designs for the horse and rider, experimenting with different poses that conveyed power and majesty. Beyond the aesthetic considerations, the engineering challenges were paramount. He devised elaborate plans for the construction of the massive clay model, or colossus, and developed intricate schematics for the casting process itself. These included designs for furnaces, molds, and systems for lifting and manipulating the heavy components. The project became a grand exercise in interdisciplinary thought, blending artistic vision with advanced engineering principles. Leonardo's deep curiosity about mechanics, materials, and structural integrity was fully engaged. Though the statue was never cast in bronze due to the exigencies of war and the diversion of resources, the preparatory work stands as a profound testament to Leonardo's boundless ambition and his capacity for conceptualizing projects of immense complexity. The clay model, once erected, was a marvel in itself, showcasing the potential of his vision. While the Sforza horse project consumed much of Leonardo's artistic and engineering focus, his role within the Sforza court extended significantly into military engineering. Ludovico Sforza, Duke of Milan, faced constant threats and strategic challenges, and Leonardo's famed letter of self-introduction had explicitly highlighted his capabilities in this domain. Consequently, a substantial portion of his time in Milan was dedicated to designing and improving instruments of warfare and defensive structures. Leonardo approached military engineering with the same analytical rigor and inventive spirit he applied to his artistic and scientific endeavors. His notebooks from this period are filled with an astonishing array of designs for war machines, many of which were far ahead of their time. He sketched intricate plans for fortified castles, envisioning new ways to resist artillery fire through innovative wall designs and strategic placements. His designs for cannons were particularly notable, exploring ways to increase their firepower, mobility, and ease of loading. He conceived of multi-barreled cannons, rapid-firing mechanisms, and even breech-loading systems, all aimed at enhancing battlefield effectiveness. Beyond static defences and artillery, Leonardo's imagination extended to more radical concepts. He drew designs for armoured vehicles, often described as proto-tanks, powered by human cranks and equipped with an array of weapons. These machines, while perhaps impractical for the technology of his era, demonstrated a profound understanding of mechanics, leverage, and protective shielding. He also explored ideas for giant crossbows, siege engines, and various forms of grappling hooks and scaling ladders designed to overcome enemy fortifications. His interest in flight found a grim application in designs for flying machines intended for reconnaissance or even aerial assault, though these remained theoretical. This engagement with military technology was not a departure from his broader intellectual pursuits, but rather an extension of them. His fascination with gears, levers, hydraulics, and pneumatics found practical application in the mechanics of war. The challenges of military engineering provided a fertile ground for his problem-solving mind, pushing the boundaries of what was technologically conceivable. He sought to understand the forces at play in combat and to devise superior means of attack and defense, always driven by an underlying curiosity about how machines could amplify human power and ingenuity. During his initial period in Milan, amidst his artistic commissions and engineering projects, Leonardo's scientific inquiries began to deepen and expand with remarkable intensity. His notebooks, which had always served as a repository for his thoughts and observations, evolved into more systematic and extensive records of his investigations into the natural world. This was a phase of profound intellectual curiosity, where his mind ranged across diverse fields, seeking the underlying principles that governed phenomena. One significant area of focus became geology. Leonardo observed the landscape with an artist's eye for detail but a scientist's mind for explanation. He meticulously studied rock formations, the stratification of layers, and the presence of marine fossils found high in the mountains. These observations led him to question conventional explanations for the Earth's history, particularly the literal interpretation of the biblical flood. He theorized about the immense spans of time required for such geological changes, understanding that the Earth itself was a dynamic, ever-changing entity sculpted by water and erosion over countless millennia. His insights foreshadowed modern geological principles by centuries. His fascination with water extended into extensive studies of hydraulics. Leonardo was captivated by the movement of rivers, the formation of eddies, and the power of currents. He filled pages with diagrams and notes on water flow, wave patterns, and the mechanics of dams and canals. His observations were not merely academic, they informed his engineering work, particularly in designing water management systems for Milan, a city crisscrossed by canals. He sought to understand the inherent properties of water, its force, and its behavior, drawing connections between the macrocosm of a river and the microcosm of a drop. Simultaneously, the mystery of flight continued to engage him deeply. Leonardo spent countless hours observing birds in flight, meticulously sketching their wing structures, body movements, and aerodynamic principles. He dissected birds to understand their musculature and skeletal design, believing that a complete understanding of avian anatomy was crucial to mastering human flight. His notebooks from this period contain numerous designs for flying machines, often inspired directly by the mechanics of bird wings, demonstrating his unwavering conviction that humans could one day conquer the skies. These expansive studies underscored his belief in observation and experimentation as the keys to unlocking nature's secrets. Amidst his diverse scientific explorations and engineering endeavours, a new artistic undertaking of monumental scale began to take shape in Leonardo's life. Around the year 1495, Ludovico Sforza, his patron, and commissioned him to create a mural for the refectory or dining hall of the Dominican convent of Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan. This was to be a depiction of the Last Supper, a subject of profound spiritual significance, intended to inspire contemplation and devotion among the friars as they gathered for their meals. The refectory itself was a long rectangular space, where the monks would sit in silence, listening to readings while they ate. The painting was destined for the end wall, a prominent position that would visually extend the room, creating an immersive experience. The chosen subject, depicting the final meal shared by Jesus with his disciples before his crucifixion, held deep theological meaning. It was a moment charged with emotion, revelation, and impending betrayal, a pivotal narrative in Christian belief. For Leonardo, this was not merely another commission, it represented an opportunity to explore the depths of human emotion and psychology within a sacred context. Before a single brushstroke was applied, a period of quiet, intense contemplation would have preceded its creation. He would have meditated on the scriptural accounts, envisioned the personalities of each apostle, and considered the precise moment to capture. The challenge was to depict not just a historical event, but the profound human drama unfolding within it. He would have pondered how to convey the shock and confusion that swept through the disciples when Jesus announced, "One of you will betray me." Each figure needed to react authentically, revealing their inner turmoil and individual character through gesture, expression, and posture. The composition had to serve both the narrative and the spiritual function of the space, drawing the viewer into the scene as if they were present at that solemn table. This meditative preparation, unseen and unheard, formed the bedrock upon which one of the world's most enduring masterpieces would slowly emerge. The execution of The Last Supper proved to be a testament to Leonardo's ceaseless drive for innovation, yet it also introduced unforeseen challenges. Eschewing the traditional method of true fresco, which required painting quickly onto wet plaster, Leonardo opted for an experimental technique. He applied tempera and oil paints directly onto a dry wall, treated with a gesso, mastic, and pitch base. This approach allowed him to work slowly to blend colours meticulously, and to achieve the subtle gradations and luminous effects characteristic of his oil paintings. It afforded him the time for careful deliberation and revision, enabling the nuanced psychological portrayals he sought. However, this innovation, while artistically liberating, was structurally flawed. The dampness of the refectory wall and the inherent instability of the chosen materials meant that the painting began to deteriorate within just a few years of its completion. The surface flaked and colours faded, a slow, unfortunate process that would plague the masterpiece for centuries. Despite this technical fragility, the artistic impact of The Last Supper was immediate and profound. Leonardo meticulously arranged the 12 apostles into 4 groups of 3, flanking Christ at the centre, creating a dynamic yet balanced composition. The moment captured is that electrifying instant after Christ's pronouncement, "One of you will betray me." The apostles' reactions are depicted with astonishing psychological depth, each conveying a distinct emotional response: surprise, anger, denial, or sorrow. From the incredulous gestures of Bartholomew, James, and Andrew on the far left, to the questioning exchange between Peter, John, and Judas, Leonardo masterfully rendered the full spectrum of human emotion. Judas, subtly set apart, clutches a small bag, his face shadowed, his body recoiling. The dramatic composition draws the viewer's eye towards Christ, whose calm, resigned posture forms a serene counterpoint to the agitation around him. The emotional resonance of the scene, conveyed through each figure's unique posture and expression, remains deeply affecting, a quiet testament to Leonardo's unparalleled insight into the human condition. The innovative approach Leonardo took with The Last Supper, while allowing for unprecedented artistic freedom, tragically contained the seeds of its own vulnerability. Almost immediately after its completion, the painting began to show signs of distress. The experimental primer, a mixture of gesso, pitch, and mastic, applied to the dry plaster wall, proved to be an inadequate foundation. The tempera and oil paints laid upon this unstable surface failed to bond permanently. Within a few short years, the painting surface started to crack and peel. The pigments, which Leonardo had so carefully layered to achieve subtle effects of light and shadow, began to flake away, exposing the underlying plaster. This rapid deterioration was exacerbated by the environmental conditions of the Dominican refectory in Santa Maria delle Grazie. The humidity from the kitchen on one side and the dampness of the wall itself contributed significantly to the painting's degradation. Furthermore, a door was later cut into the lower centre of the wall, removing Christ's feet and further compromising the integrity of the work. This unfortunate outcome underscores a persistent challenge faced by artists throughout history: the inherent impermanence of materials. While many Renaissance masters adhered to the proven, enduring technique of true fresco for large-scale wall paintings, Leonardo's insatiable drive to push boundaries led him to experiment. He sought the rich colour and detailed finish achievable with oil paints, which fresco could not provide. But in doing so, he unknowingly sacrificed the work's longevity. The early decay of the Last Supper became a poignant reminder that even the most brilliant artistic visions could be undermined by the physical limitations of their medium. Subsequent generations would grapple with the consequences of this initial fragility, attempting numerous restorations, each with varying degrees of success. The painting's journey through centuries of decay and intervention highlights the ongoing struggle to preserve humanity's most cherished artistic achievements against the relentless march of time and the unpredictable nature of matter. Its very survival, despite these profound challenges, speaks to its enduring power and significance. Life within the Sforza court offered Leonardo a unique blend of patronage and professional demands. He was not merely a painter, but a multifaceted figure whose talents were deployed across a spectrum of courtly needs. His days were often a fluid mosaic of artistic creation, engineering projects, scientific observation, and even entertainment. His interactions with Duke Ludovico Sforza were complex. Ludovico was a discerning patron, appreciative of genius, yet also pragmatic in his expectations. Leonardo was tasked with designing elaborate court festivals and theatrical productions, creating intricate stage machinery, costumes, and scenery. These commissions, though seemingly ephemeral, showcased his inventive mind and ability to translate grand visions into tangible, albeit temporary experiences. He would sketch detailed plans for flying angels or mechanical lions, bringing wonder to the ducal palace. Beyond the ducal court, Leonardo engaged with a diverse community of scholars, musicians, and fellow artists. He was not isolated in his pursuits, but often in discourse, exchanging ideas and observations. His workshop, though smaller than Verrocchio's, would have been a hub of activity, with apprentices assisting him and perhaps contributing to the lesser parts of his commissions. He would have shared insights on anatomy with physicians, discussed optics with mathematicians, and debated philosophy with humanists. This intellectual ferment was as vital to his development as the solitary hours spent sketching or dissecting. His role extended to military engineering, designing fortifications, cannons, and other implements of war, a practical application of his deep understanding of mechanics and physics. These duties, while perhaps less celebrated today, were crucial to his status and income within the court structure. He was an invaluable asset, capable of addressing both the aesthetic and practical needs of a powerful ruler. This courtly environment provided both resources and constraints. The demands of the Duke could interrupt long-term projects, yet they also pushed Leonardo to apply his intellect to an astonishing array of challenges. The blending of artistic creation, rigorous scientific investigation, and the practical necessities of courtly duties shaped his daily existence, allowing his unique genius to manifest in diverse forms, from the sublime brush strokes of a painting to the intricate gears of a theatrical device. He navigated this world with a quiet intensity, always observing, always learning, and always creating, under the watchful eye of his powerful patron. The relative stability of Leonardo's Milanese life under Ludovico Sforza was abruptly shattered in the late summer of 1499. Political tensions had been escalating across the Italian peninsula, and the ambitions of foreign powers began to cast a long shadow over the independent states. King Louis XII of France, asserting ancestral claims to the Duchy of Milan, launched a full-scale invasion. The French forces, formidable and well-organised, swept into Lombardy with considerable speed. Milan itself fell swiftly, almost without resistance, in September of 1499. Duke Ludovico Sforza, Leonardo's long-standing patron, was forced to flee the city, his reign brought to an unexpected and decisive end. This sudden overthrow of power created an immediate and profound disruption for all who had depended upon the Sforza court, including Leonardo. The carefully constructed world that had allowed Leonardo's diverse talents to flourish collapsed around him. The financial support, the courtly commissions, and the intellectual environment that had sustained his work for nearly 2 decades vanished almost overnight. Uncertainty became the prevailing condition. Leonardo, like many others, found himself in a precarious position, his future no longer assured by the patronage of a stable court. Among the most poignant casualties of this upheaval was the monumental clay model of the Sforza Equestrian Monument. This colossal sculpture, the culmination of years of meticulous study, design and preparation, had stood as a testament to Leonardo's ambition and Ludovico's power. It was intended to be cast in bronze, a masterpiece of engineering and art. However, with the French occupation, the clay model was reportedly used for target practice by French archers, its grand form reduced to rubble. The immense bronze, which had been set aside for the casting, was seized by the French to be melted down for cannons. The destruction of the Sforza horse represented not only the loss of a singular artistic achievement, but also the symbolic end of an era for Leonardo. It signified the fragility of even the grandest artistic endeavours in the face of political turmoil. With his patron deposed and his major artistic project ruined, Leonardo was compelled to consider his next steps, facing a future that required adaptation and movement. The fall of Milan marked a significant turning point, forcing him to leave the city that had been his home for so long. Following the collapse of the Sforza court and the destruction of his equestrian monument, Leonardo da Vinci embarked on a journey southward, finding his way back to Florence in the spring of 1500. It had been nearly 2 decades since he had left his native city for the splendours of Milan, and in his absence Florence itself had undergone profound transformations. The Florence to which Leonardo returned was not entirely the city he had departed. The intervening years had witnessed a dramatic shift in its political and social landscape. The Medici, who had once held sway with their lavish patronage and humanist ideals, had been expelled. In their place, a more austere and fervent religious leader, Girolamo Savonarola, had risen to prominence, whereas Savonarola's zealous sermons preached against the perceived sins and excesses of Renaissance culture, leading to the infamous bonfires of the vanities, where luxury goods, secular art, and even books were publicly burned. While Savonarola himself had been executed in 1498, his brief but intense period of influence had left an indelible mark on the Florentine psyche, fostering a more conservative and morally conscious atmosphere. For Leonardo, this return to Florence represented a period of significant readjustment. He arrived not as the aspiring young artist who had left, but as a renowned master, albeit one recently dislodged from a position of considerable privilege. He was now in his late 40s, an age when many masters had already secured their legacy. The city, while familiar in its architecture and dialect, he felt different in its spirit. The initial enthusiasm for the arts under the Medici had given way to a more cautious patronage from the newly established Republican government and private citizens. This period was one of new beginnings, yet also of assessment. Leonardo had to re-establish his workshop and seek new commissions in a competitive environment where other talented artists like the young Michelangelo were beginning to make their mark. His experience in Milan had broadened his scope immensely, but now he needed to find a way to apply his multidisciplinary genius within the altered context of Florence. It was a time for re-evaluation, for reconnecting with old acquaintances, and for finding new avenues for his inexhaustible curiosity and creative drive. The city offered familiar surroundings, yet demanded a fresh approach to his artistic and scientific pursuits. The period of readjustment in Florence was soon interrupted by a new and unexpected chapter in Leonardo's life. In the summer of 1502, he entered the service of Cesare Borgia, the ambitious son of Pope Alexander VI, who was then consolidating his power across central Italy. Borgia, a formidable military leader, sought to establish a unified state in Romagna and required the expertise of skilled individuals to aid his campaigns. Leonardo was appointed as his general architect and engineer, a role that would draw upon his diverse talents in a uniquely practical and intense manner. This was a departure from his previous artistic commissions and even from the engineering projects in Milan. Under Borgia, Leonardo's work was directly tied to military objectives and territorial control. His primary duties involved surveying and mapping the lands Borgia intended to conquer or defend. He travelled extensively through the marches and Umbria, meticulously documenting the terrain. His notebooks from this period are filled with detailed topographical drawings showing rivers, hills, fortifications and strategic points, all rendered with an unparalleled precision. Leonardo's innovative mapping techniques were particularly remarkable. He moved beyond traditional, often stylized representations of land. Instead, he developed methods for creating accurate, scaled maps, often employing an aerial perspective that anticipated modern cartography. He would climb to elevated points, sketch the landscape from above, and then use geometric principles to translate these observations into precise plans. His maps of Imola and Urbino, for instance, are marvels of their kind, demonstrating a keen understanding of spatial relationships and the practical needs of military strategists. Beyond cartography, Leonardo also advised Borgia on fortifications, siege engines, and hydraulic engineering. He designed improvements for existing defences and conceived of new methods for diverting rivers or constructing canals, always with a strategic purpose in mind. This intense period of travel and practical application of his scientific mind allowed him to deepen his understanding of geology, hydrology, and the mechanics of warfare. It was a rigorous, demanding service, far removed from the quiet contemplation of an artist's studio. Yet it profoundly enriched his observational skills and broadened his engineering insights, even though his direct service to Borgia lasted only a little over a year, ending with Borgia's diminishing fortunes. Upon his return to Florence after his intense period with Cesare Borgia, Leonardo was soon presented with a monumental artistic challenge. In 1503, the Florentine Signoria, the city's governing council, commissioned him to paint a vast mural in the newly constructed Great Council Hall of the Palazzo della Signoria. The subject chosen was the Battle of Anghiari, a decisive victory for the Florentine Republic over Milanese forces in 1440. This commission was not only a significant civic undertaking, but also a direct challenge, as Michelangelo Buonarroti, a younger and formidable rival, was simultaneously commissioned to paint an opposing mural depicting the Battle of Cassina on another wall in the same hall. The scale of the project was immense, intended to cover a wall approximately 17 metres wide. This was to be a celebration of Florentine military prowess and a testament to the city's enduring strength. For Leonardo, it represented an opportunity to apply his profound understanding of anatomy, motion, and human emotion on an unprecedented scale within a public space. The ambition was not merely to depict a historical event, but to capture the raw, visceral energy of combat itself. Leonardo devoted considerable time to the preparatory stages, creating numerous studies and cartoons. These surviving drawings provide a glimpse into the dynamic energy he intended to convey. They show furious clashes of cavalry, your horses rearing and biting and soldiers locked in desperate struggle. Every muscle, every sinew, every expression of fear or rage was meticulously observed and rendered. He sought to portray the bestiality of war, the chaotic entanglement of man and beast in a desperate fight for survival. His focus was on a central climactic moment, the struggle for the standard, a swirling vortex of horsemen and foot soldiers vying for control of the battle flag. This particular section, known as the fight for the standard, is what we know most about today through copies. The preparatory drawings for this segment are particularly striking, filled with a sense of explosive motion and intertwining forms. The horses are not simply mounts but active participants in the fray, their powerful bodies contorting with effort, their eyes wide with terror or aggression. The human figures, often depicted with contorted faces and strained bodies, convey the immense physical and psychological toll of battle. This was to be a spectacle of controlled chaos, a testament to the destructive power and raw emotion of human conflict, rendered with an almost terrifying realism. With the grand vision for the Battle of Anghiari firmly established in his mind and numerous preparatory studies complete, Leonardo embarked upon the execution of the mural. However, in his characteristic pursuit of innovation, he chose to experiment with a new painting technique, rather than the established and reliable fresco method. This decision, much like his earlier experiments with The Last Supper, would ultimately lead to the project's tragic failure. Leonardo sought a method that would allow him greater flexibility and a slower drying time than traditional fresco, which required swift and decisive brushwork on wet plaster. He aimed to achieve the rich, luminous qualities of oil painting on a large wall surface. His chosen technique involved applying an oil-based medium directly onto the dry plaster in an attempt to replicate the ancient Roman encaustic method, which used heated wax. He believed this approach would allow for more subtle gradations of light and shadow, and a greater depth of colour, enhancing the dramatic realism he envisioned. Yet, the experimental medium proved incompatible with the demands of the large wall. Accounts from his contemporaries describe the immediate and distressing problems encountered. As Leonardo began to apply the paint, particularly in the lower sections of the mural, the colours failed to adhere properly to the wall. The pigments began to run, creating streaks and drips, and the surface refused to dry as intended. In an attempt to hasten the drying process for the upper portions of the vast composition, Leonardo reportedly used braziers filled with burning coals placed beneath the mural. This desperate measure only exacerbated the problems. The intense heat caused the paint to melt and flow uncontrollably, further damaging the already fragile layers. The mural, even in its incomplete state, began to deteriorate almost immediately. The vibrant energy captured in his preparatory drawings could not be translated onto the wall in a stable form. The ambitious project, intended as a lasting testament to Florentine victory and Leonardo's genius, slowly began to dissolve. Despite the clear evidence of his previous struggles with experimental techniques, Leonardo's persistent drive to push the boundaries of artistic practice remained undimmed. He was a man who embraced risk in the pursuit of perfection, often prioritizing the exploration of new methods over the certainty of established ones. This relentless quest for innovation, while yielding groundbreaking insights in other fields, often led to profound disappointments in his monumental painting projects. The Battle of Anghiari, like The Last Supper before it, became another powerful illustration of this duality, a testament to his daring spirit and the inherent fragility of his artistic experiments. Amidst the turmoil and eventual failure of the Battle of Anghiari mural, another commission of a very different nature emerged. This quieter, more intimate undertaking would in time become the most celebrated painting in the world. Around 1503, Leonardo was approached by Francesco del Giocondo, a wealthy Florentine silk merchant, to paint a portrait of his wife Lisa Gherardini. This was a standard request for the era, a way for affluent families to commemorate their status and their loved ones. The sittings for such a portrait would have been a calm, contemplative affair, Unlike the grand public spectacle of a fresco, a portrait session was a private exchange between artist and sitter. Lisa Gherardini, a woman of modest background who had married into a prominent family, would have presented herself in her finest attire, seated patiently in Leonardo's studio. The atmosphere would have been one of quiet observation, whereas with the soft light of the Florentine studio illuminating her features. Leonardo, known for his methodical approach, would have begun with meticulous drawings, carefully studying Lisa's bone structure, the subtle contours of her face, and the way light played across her skin. He did not merely seek to create a likeness, but to capture the essence of the individual, their inner life and temperament. During these extended sittings, it is said that Leonardo employed musicians and jesters to entertain Lisa, believing that a relaxed and cheerful disposition would bring forth a more natural and engaging expression. This suggests a desire to transcend a mere static representation, to imbue the portrait with a sense of living presence and personality. The initial stages of the painting would have involved laying down thin, translucent layers of oil paint slowly building up the forms. Leonardo's mastery of sfumato, a technique of subtly blending colours and tones to create soft, imperceptible transitions between light and shadow, would have been central to this process. This method, which he had refined over decades, allowed him to imbue his figures with an almost ethereal quality, blurring outlines and creating a sense of depth and atmospheric perspective. As he worked, the canvas would slowly begin to reveal the soft curves of her face, the gentle fall of her hair, and the quiet composure of her posture. It was in these early, unhurried stages that the foundations for the painting's enduring mystery were laid, beginning with the delicate rendering of her gaze and the nascent hint of a smile. The creation of the Mona Lisa represented a profound evolution in portraiture, moving beyond mere representation to an exploration of psychological depth. Leonardo's primary innovation lay in his masterful application of sfumato. This technique, characterized by subtle gradations of light and shadow, allowed him to soften contours and blend colors seamlessly, creating an effect of ethereal softness. There are no harsh lines in the Mona Lisa. Instead, forms emerge gently from the canvas, as if veiled in a delicate mist. This blurring of edges, particularly around the eyes and mouth, contributes significantly to the painting's enduring mystery. The enigmatic smile, perhaps the most famous aspect of the portrait, is a direct result of this sfumato. Leonardo deliberately left the corners of Lisa Gherardini's mouth and eyes in a state of soft ambiguity. Depending on where the viewer focuses, the smile appears to shift, to deepen, or to recede. It is not a fixed expression, but a fleeting, almost imperceptible gesture, mirroring the complexities of human emotion. This deliberate ambiguity invites the viewer to participate in the interpretation, to project their own feelings onto the subject, making the encounter deeply personal and endlessly fascinating. Beyond the technical brilliance, Leonardo sought to capture a living presence, a soul inhabiting the painted form. He understood that a true portrait was more than a record of physical features. It was a window into the inner world of the sitter. The Mona Lisa gazes directly at the viewer, her eyes following with an uncanny intensity. This direct engagement, combined with the subtle tilt of her head and the relaxed posture of her hands, creates an impression of naturalness and immediacy. She does not pose stiffly. Rather, she seems to exist within her own contemplative space, momentarily sharing it with the observer. The background, a distant undulating landscape of mountains and rivers, further enhances this sense of psychological depth. It is not merely a backdrop, but an extension of the sitter's inner world, a vast, almost dreamlike vista that contrasts with the intimate focus on Lisa's face. The atmospheric perspective of the landscape, with its increasingly hazy forms, mirrors the sfumato used on her face, creating a harmonious unity between figure and environment. Through these subtle artistic choices, Leonardo transformed conventional portrait into a profound study of human consciousness, a testament to his belief that art should illuminate the invisible truths of existence. The Mona Lisa thus stands not just as a painting, but as a quiet, enduring meditation on the very nature of perception and emotion. During his second period in Florence, Leonardo's profound curiosity about the human form intensified, leading him to undertake a truly remarkable series of anatomical investigations. This was a phase of deep immersion, driven by a desire to understand the body's intricate mechanics and its hidden workings with unprecedented precision. He embarked upon numerous human dissections, a practice that, while not entirely unique for the time, Leonardo pursued with a level of dedication and scientific rigor that surpassed many of his contemporaries. His work was not merely about observation, but about systematic inquiry. He meticulously opened bodies, carefully separating layers of muscle, tendon, and nerve to reveal the underlying structures. Each dissection became an opportunity to transcribe what he saw onto paper, translating the three-dimensional complexity of the human anatomy into detailed, two-dimensional illustrations. These drawings were not just artistic renderings, they were scientific documents, annotated with his observations and theories, capturing the form and function of organs, bones, and musculature. A significant collaboration during this time was with Marcantonio della Torre, a distinguished professor of anatomy at the University of Pavia. This partnership, though tragically cut short by della Torre's early death, promised a combined effort to produce an exhaustive treatise on anatomy. Leonardo's skill as an artist provided the visual clarity, while della Torre's academic knowledge offered systematic medical context. Their shared endeavour underscores the interdisciplinary nature of Leonardo's approach, bridging the divide between art and science. The resulting anatomical illustrations are among the most beautiful and accurate ever produced. They possess a clarity and elegance that elevates them beyond mere diagrams. Leonardo employed various perspectives, cross-sections, and exploded views to convey the spatial relationships of internal structures. His lines are crisp, his shading precise, and his understanding of proportion and perspective impeccable. He rendered the delicate network of nerves, the intricate branching of blood vessels, and the powerful architecture of the skeleton with an astonishing degree of detail. These drawings stand as a testament to his relentless pursuit of knowledge and his unparalleled ability to visually articulate the wonders of the human body, revealing its internal landscape with both scientific exactitude and profound artistic grace. For Leonardo, the intricate mechanics of the human body were not merely a subject for scientific study, but a profound gateway to understanding the inner life, the very essence of what he sometimes referred to as the soul. He believed that the visible manifestations of emotion, the subtle shifts in expression, and the involuntary movements that betray inner states, were all rooted in the physical structure and function of the body. His anatomical investigations therefore extended beyond bones and muscles to encompass the dynamic interplay between the corporeal and the emotional. He meticulously observed and drew the faces of individuals experiencing various states of mind: joy, sorrow, anger, fear, contemplation. These studies of physiognomy were not superficial sketches, but deep inquiries into how internal sensations translated into external appearance. He sought to map the muscles responsible for a smile, the tension in the brow that signified worry, or the widening of the eyes that conveyed surprise. For Leonardo, the face was a canvas where the soul's movements were made manifest. This connection between the physical and the psychological was central to his artistic practice. When he painted portraits or figures within narrative scenes, he strove to imbue them with a sense of living presence, a reflection of their inner world. The Mona Lisa, with her famously ambiguous smile, is a prime example of this endeavour, where the subtle play of light and shadow, combined with an understanding of facial musculature, creates an expression that seems to shift and breathe with an internal life. His scientific inquiries into the mechanics of life also delved into the brain, which he recognized as the seat of the senses and the intellect. Though his understanding of neurological processes was limited by the technology of his time, he made earnest attempts to map the brain's ventricles and to hypothesize about its role in perception and thought. He saw the eye as a marvel of natural engineering, as meticulously drawing its structure and theorizing about the process of vision, understanding it as the primary conduit through which the external world reached the inner self. Thus, for Leonardo, art and science were not separate disciplines, but interwoven threads of a single, grand tapestry. His anatomical drawings were not just for medical understanding. They were also a painter's guide to depicting believable human figures capable of conveying profound emotional and psychological depth. His scientific notebooks are filled with observations that directly informed his artistic choices, allowing him to create works that resonated with a profound sense of humanity, capturing not just the body's form, but the elusive stirrings of the human spirit within. Upon Leonardo's return to Florence, and the city was a vibrant crucible of artistic endeavour, yet it also became the stage for a notable professional tension. A younger, formidable talent had emerged, one whose artistic philosophy and personal demeanour stood in stark contrast to Leonardo's. This was Michelangelo Buonarroti, a sculptor of immense power and a painter of profound conviction. The city's commissions and public spaces were large enough for both, yet their differing approaches naturally led to a sense of rivalry, a quiet competition for supremacy. Leonardo by this time was in his early 50s, a figure of established renown, known for his deliberate pace, his scientific curiosity, and his refined, almost ethereal aesthetic. His works often conveyed a sense of subtle movement, atmospheric depth, and psychological nuance. Michelangelo, on the other hand, was in his late 20s, characterized by a more intense, often solitary nature, driven by a fervent belief in the power of the human form, particularly in its most heroic and monumental manifestations. His art spoke of raw energy, dramatic tension, and an almost divine ideal of physical perfection. Their artistic philosophies diverged significantly. Leonardo championed the subtlety of sfumato, the blending of tones to create soft, imperceptible transitions, imbuing his figures with a gentle, living quality that emerged from shadow. Michelangelo preferred the sharp clarity of disegno, the masterful drawing of form and outline, emphasizing the sculptural quality of figures, their muscularity and defined contours, often presenting them in dynamic, almost violent poses. This fundamental difference in approach was not merely stylistic. It reflected deeper convictions about the nature of art itself. For Leonardo, painting was a science, an exploration of the visible world and its underlying principles. For Michelangelo, it was a divine calling, a struggle to release the inherent form from the stone or the canvas, a spiritual act. The most direct manifestation of this rivalry occurred with the concurrent commissions for frescoes in the Palazzo della Signoria. Leonardo was to paint the Battle of Anghiari, and Michelangelo the Battle of Cassina. These projects placed them in direct competition, challenging each to outdo the other in skill and inventiveness. Though neither fresco was ever completed, the very idea of their side-by-side presence in the city's most important civic building speaks to the intense artistic atmosphere of Florence at that time, an era defined by the contrasting genius of these two towering figures. Their differing personalities and artistic visions, while creating a palpable tension, also spurred innovation and pushed the boundaries of what art could achieve. Amidst the intense focus on anatomical studies and monumental public commissions during his second Florentine period, Leonardo also turned his attention to mythological subjects, exploring themes that allowed for a different kind of artistic and intellectual inquiry. Among these, the theme of Leda and the Swan captivated him, leading to the creation of a painting that, though now lost, is known through numerous preparatory drawings and copies made by his followers. This subject, drawn from Greek mythology, recounts the seduction of Leda, queen of Sparta, by the god Zeus, who had transformed himself into a swan. From their union, 2 eggs were laid, from which hatched Helen of Troy, Clytemnestra, Castor, and Pollux. The narrative provided Leonardo with a rich canvas for exploring the intersection of divine power and earthly beauty, the act of creation, and the sensuousness of the human form in a natural setting. Leonardo's approach to Leda and the Swan was characteristic of his profound engagement with both observation and symbolism. His surviving studies for the work reveal an intense focus on the intricate pose of Leda, her body twisting and curving in a manner that suggests both vulnerability and grace. The Swan, in turn, is depicted with a delicate realism, its feathers meticulously rendered, its form intertwined with Leda's in a way that emphasizes the intimacy and unusual nature of their encounter. Beyond the figures themselves, Leonardo's preparatory drawings also indicate his interest in the surrounding landscape and the symbolic elements of the myth. The growth of plants, the flow of water, and the presence of the hatched children from the eggs were all considered, weaving together a scene that spoke not only of the mythological event, but also of the cycles of nature and life itself. The theme of generation and new life, springing forth from an extraordinary union, resonated with Leonardo's broader scientific investigations into birth and natural processes. The painting itself, based on descriptions from contemporaries, depicted Leda standing nude, embracing the swan, with the eggs and the emerging children at her feet. It was noted for its exquisite rendering of the flesh, its soft atmospheric quality, and the profound expressiveness of the figures. While its ultimate fate remains unknown, its influence through the copies and studies demonstrates Leonardo's continued exploration of beauty, sensuality, and the mysterious forces of creation, even as his scientific mind meticulously dissected the physical world. It stands as another testament to his capacity to infuse classical narratives with a unique blend of naturalism and profound psychological depth. After years of varied commissions and intense anatomical studies in Florence, a new chapter began to unfold for Leonardo in 1506, marking his return to Milan. The political landscape of the city had, by this time, shifted profoundly. No longer under the rule of Ludovico Sforza, Milan was now firmly under French control, and this change brought with it new patrons and a different kind of courtly environment. Leonardo's return was largely facilitated by Charles d'Amboise, the French governor of Milan. D'Amboise was a cultured and discerning patron who held Leonardo in high esteem, recognizing his unique talents not only as an artist but also as an engineer and philosopher. This patronage offered Leonardo a measure of stability and freedom that had, at times, been elusive in Florence. The atmosphere in Milan under French rule was perhaps less overtly competitive than the Florentine milieu, where the rivalry with Michelangelo had been a constant if stimulating presence. The opportunities in this second Milanese period were distinct. While grand artistic projects like the Battle of Anghiari were behind him, the French court was eager to benefit from Leonardo's expertise in various fields. He was not merely an artist to them, but a polymath whose intellectual curiosity and practical skills could be applied to numerous endeavours. This meant that his time was often divided between painting, engineering, and scientific research, fulfilling requests from his new patrons. This period allowed Leonardo to deepen his scientific investigations, particularly in the fields of anatomy, optics, and hydraulics. The French administration provided resources and, crucially, a receptive audience for his intellectual pursuits. It was a time when his notebooks continued to fill with observations, diagrams, and theoretical musings, reflecting a mind constantly probing the mechanics of the natural world. While painting commissions were also undertaken, the emphasis often leaned towards scholarly work, supported by a government that valued intellectual inquiry. The second Milanese sojourn, therefore, represented a shift from the more tumultuous and demanding Florentine years. It was a period of sustained intellectual activity, supported by a patron who appreciated the full breadth of Leonardo's genius, providing a calmer, more reflective environment for his multifaceted endeavours. The second period in Milan, under the patronage of Charles d'Amboise, afforded Leonardo a profound measure of intellectual freedom, allowing his scientific mind to roam with fewer constraints than before. This was not merely a time for commissions, but an era of dedicated inquiry, where the pursuit of knowledge itself became a primary activity, supported and encouraged by his benefactors. Among the many fields that captivated him during these years, the study of hydraulics held a particular fascination. Leonardo dedicated countless hours to observing the behaviour of water, its currents, its eddies, its destructive power, and its life-giving properties. He meticulously sketched water flow patterns, designing innovative locks and canal systems, and contemplating the very forces that shaped landscapes. His notebooks from this time are replete with diagrams illustrating water's movement, its impact on erosion, and its potential for practical applications in engineering. He viewed water not just as a substance, but as a dynamic entity, a fundamental component of the Earth's lifeblood, worthy of profound investigation. This deep engagement with water extended into broader engineering principles. Leonardo's mind consistently sought to understand the underlying mechanics of all phenomena. He explored methods for diverting rivers, for constructing bridges, and for improving urban infrastructure. His designs were often far ahead of their time, demonstrating an intuitive grasp of physics and material science that was remarkable. The French court, recognizing his exceptional ingenuity, provided both the resources and the receptive environment for these ambitious investigations. There was a quiet dedication to pure inquiry during these Milanese years. Leonardo was less pressured to produce grand artistic masterpieces, and more at liberty to follow the threads of his curiosity wherever they led. His studies were not always tied to immediate practical application, but often driven by a sheer desire to comprehend the natural world. This freedom allowed him to delve deeper into theoretical physics, to refine his understanding of optics, and to continue his anatomical explorations, all with a serene focus. It was a period where the scientist in Leonardo truly flourished, unburdened by the more intense demands of public artistic display, allowing for a sustained and meditative engagement with the mysteries of existence. Leonardo da Vinci's extensive travels across the Italian landscape, particularly through the valleys and mountains, provided him with a unique vantage point for observing the Earth's ancient processes. His keen eye did not merely see scenery, but rather a vast ongoing experiment in geology and hydrology. He noted how rivers ceaselessly sculpted the land, carrying sediment from higher elevations and depositing it in lower plains, and gradually reshaping the very contours of the world. He meticulously documented the effects of erosion, sketching riverbeds, cliff faces, and rock formations that bore the unmistakable marks of water's persistent action over immense spans of time. His observations led him to understand that mountains, though seemingly immutable, were in a constant state of slow transformation, worn down by the elements and reformed by geological uplift. This was a revolutionary concept for his era, challenging the prevailing static view of the Earth's creation. Leonardo's notebooks reveal a sophisticated understanding of the water cycle, long before it was formally articulated. He deduced that water evaporated from oceans and lakes, formed clouds, fell as rain or snow, and then flowed back to the seas, a continuous regenerative process. He understood the interconnectedness of these phenomena, recognizing that the moisture in the air, the flow of rivers, and the formation of springs were all part of one grand cyclical system. From these profound observations, Leonardo's mind naturally turned to practical applications. He envisioned ambitious canal systems designed to harness water's power for human benefit, for transportation, and for irrigation. He drew detailed plans for diverting rivers, not just for flood control, but to create navigable waterways that could connect distant cities and facilitate commerce. His designs for locks and dams, though many were never realized, showcased an extraordinary foresight and a deep comprehension of fluid dynamics. He also pondered the origins of fossils found on mountain tops, correctly deducing that these were remnants of ancient marine life, suggesting that the land itself had once been submerged beneath the sea. This challenged contemporary explanations that attributed fossils to the Great Flood, indicating instead a much more ancient and dynamic history for the Earth. Leonardo's geological and hydrological studies were not merely casual observations, but a systematic and deeply meditative inquiry into the fundamental forces that shaped and continued to shape the world around him. His quiet contemplation of these grand processes allowed him to see the Earth as a living, breathing entity, constantly evolving through the slow, persistent work of water and time. Amidst his scientific inquiries and engineering designs during this later Milanese period, Leonardo da Vinci continued to paint, and producing works that encapsulated his evolving artistic and philosophical perspectives. Among these is the enigmatic St. John the Baptist, a painting that stands apart in its dark, almost unsettling quality. Unlike many traditional depictions of the saint, which often emphasize his asceticism or prophetic fire, Leonardo's interpretation presents a figure imbued with a profound, yet ambiguous sensuality. The painting emanates from a deep, almost velvety darkness, from which the figure of John emerges. His gaze is direct, yet his smile, reminiscent of the Mona Lisa's, carries an elusive quality, hinting at knowledge unspoken or a mystery yet to be revealed. The use of sfumato, Leonardo's signature technique of soft, imperceptible transitions between colours and tones, is employed here with masterful effect, in allowing the forms to dissolve gently into shadow, creating an atmosphere of dreamlike introspection. John's raised right hand points skyward, a traditional gesture signifying the coming of Christ. However, the gesture in Leonardo's painting feels less like a fervent proclamation and more like a quiet, knowing invitation. The left hand rests gently over his heart, or perhaps his stomach, a gesture of self-possession that adds to the painting's quiet intensity. The slender, almost androgynous form of the saint, emerging from the shadows, contributes to the work's captivating blend of the sacred and the earthly. The spiritual depth of St. John the Baptist lies precisely in its ambiguity. It does not offer a clear didactic message, but rather invites contemplation. The viewer is drawn into the painting's quiet presence, encouraged to ponder the nature of prophecy, devotion, and the human spirit itself. The subtle play of light and shadow on the saint's face and body, the delicate curls of his hair, and the faint animal skin he wears, all contribute to a sense of profound introspection. This work reflects Leonardo's lifelong fascination with the inner life, with the subtle expressions that reveal deeper truths, and with the enduring mysteries that lie at the heart of human experience. From the contemplative shadows of St. John the Baptist, Leonardo's artistic journey in this second Milanese period also led to works of serene grace and complex familial tenderness, most notably The Virgin and Child with St. Anne. This painting, the culmination of many years of thought and preparatory studies, presents a composition of remarkable ingenuity and emotional depth. The work is structured around a subtle yet powerful pyramidal arrangement, a compositional device Leonardo frequently employed to create stability and harmony. Saint Anne, the Virgin Mary's mother, forms the base of this pyramid, seated with a gentle dignity. Upon her lap, Mary is depicted, leaning forward with a graceful twist of her body, her gaze directed towards the playful Christ child. The infant Jesus in turn reaches out to embrace a lamb, a symbolic foreshadowing of his sacrifice. This interwoven arrangement of three figures, flowing seamlessly into one another, creates a sense of profound unity and natural movement. What truly elevates this masterpiece is the subtle emotional interaction between the figures. There is no overt drama or exaggerated gesture, but rather a quiet symphony of glances, touches, and expressions. St. Anne observes her daughter and grandson with a serene, almost knowing smile, a timeless wisdom reflected in her eyes. The Virgin Mary's expression is one of tender devotion as she reaches for her son, her maternal love palpable in the soft curve of her arm and the gentle tilt of her head. The Christ child, full of childlike innocence, engages with the Lamb, unaware of the profound implications of his playful embrace. The landscape receding into the distance, rendered with Leonardo's characteristic atmospheric perspective and sfumato, adds to the painting's ethereal quality. Distant mountains shrouded in a blue haze and a tranquil body of water contribute to the overall sense of peace and timelessness. Every element, and from the delicate rendering of fabrics to the subtle play of light on the figure's skin, speaks of meticulous observation and profound artistic insight. The Virgin and Child with Saint Anne is not merely a religious depiction. It is a meditation on lineage, maternal love, and the tender bonds that connect generations, all rendered with an unparalleled sense of grace and quiet profundity. As the years gently progressed, Leonardo da Vinci, like all mortals, began to experience the inevitable passage of time reflected in his own physical being. The boundless energy and youthful vigour that had characterised his earlier decades slowly began to yield to the subtle encroachments of age. Towards the later part of his life, particularly during his final years in Rome and France, records and observations suggest that his physical capacities were not as they once were. One notable challenge that began to manifest was a weakening in his right hand. Historical accounts, though sometimes fragmented, hint at an affliction that may have been a form of stroke or similar neurological event. This condition, if indeed it was a stroke, would have significantly impaired the dexterity and control of his primary painting hand, making the delicate and precise movements required for his intricate brushwork increasingly difficult, if not impossible. The meticulous blending of colours and the creation of the subtle sfumato effect, hallmarks of his artistic genius, would have become arduous tasks. This physical impediment, however, did not diminish the incandescent flame of his intellectual curiosity. Nay, while the act of painting with his accustomed mastery may have become constrained, his mind remained as sharp and expansive as ever. The drive to observe, to question, and to understand the mechanisms of the natural world persisted with undiminished intensity. His notebooks from this period, filled with meticulous drawings and detailed annotations, testify to a mind still actively engaged in scientific inquiry, engineering design, and philosophical contemplation. The inability to execute grand artistic commissions with the same ease as before simply redirected his prodigious talents. He continued to draw with his left hand, and his focus shifted further towards the theoretical aspects of art and science. His anatomical studies continued, his geological observations deepened, and his investigations into mechanics and hydraulics remained a constant source of fascination. The physical challenges of aging merely refined the channels through which his genius flowed, transforming his output but never diminishing the profound intellectual spirit that defined his existence. In the year 1513, Leonardo da Vinci, now in his early 60s, embarked upon a new chapter in his life, moving to the vibrant yet often tumultuous city of Rome. This relocation was made possible through the patronage of Giuliano de' Medici, who was the younger brother of the recently elected Pope Leo X. The Medici family, renowned for their influence and their deep appreciation for the arts, offered Leonardo a residence within the Vatican's Belvedere courtyard, a place that, on the surface, promised an environment conducive to his multifaceted genius. However, Rome at this particular moment was a crucible of artistic endeavour, brimming with formidable talents who were then at the height of their powers. The city was a stage where the grand visions of Raphael and Michelangelo were unfolding with breathtaking speed and scale. Raphael, with his serene and harmonious frescoes, was captivating the papal court, while Michelangelo, having just completed the Sistine Chapel ceiling, was already embarking on new, equally monumental projects. Their presence created an intense, almost palpable atmosphere of competition and artistic rivalry. Amidst this fervent environment, Leonardo's experience in Rome proved to be somewhat unsettling and less productive in terms of major artistic commissions than one might expect for an artist of his stature. Unlike his earlier patrons who had granted him considerable freedom and resources for large-scale projects, his time under Giuliano de' Medici did not yield significant painting commissions. The political climate within the Vatican, combined with the established positions of the younger, more favoured artists, meant that Leonardo, despite his immense reputation, found himself somewhat on the periphery of the most prestigious artistic undertakings. His work during this Roman period largely shifted towards scientific experimentation and the development of various mechanical devices. He continued his anatomical studies, explored optics, and even devised intricate mirrors. While these pursuits were deeply engaging for him, the absence of a major painting commission or a grand architectural project suggests that Rome, for all its artistic glory, did not fully harness or appreciate the full spectrum of Leonardo's unique genius in the same way that Milan or Florence once had. It was a period marked more by intellectual exploration than by the creation of new masterpieces of art. Despite the frustrations that arose from a relative lack of major artistic commissions in Rome, Leonardo's extraordinary mind remained perpetually active and deeply inquisitive. The absence of large-scale painting projects did not diminish his relentless pursuit of knowledge. Instead, it seemed to redirect his boundless curiosity towards the scientific and mechanical realms that had always fascinated him. His time in the Eternal City, therefore, became a period of intense, if quieter, intellectual exploration. Within his workshop in the Belvedere courtyard, Leonardo delved deeply into the study of optics. He meticulously investigated the nature of light, reflection, and perception, concepts that had profound implications for his art, even if he was not then actively painting. He experimented with various types of mirrors, grinding and polishing them to observe how they distorted or clarified images, seeking to understand the underlying principles of vision and how the eye perceived the world. These inquiries were not merely academic, they were driven by a desire to unravel the fundamental mechanisms of sight, a subject he had pondered since his earliest days as an artist. Beyond optics, Leonardo continued to design and refine an array of mechanical devices. His notebooks from this period contain sketches and detailed descriptions of innovative machines, some practical, others purely theoretical. He conceived of lifting mechanisms, tools for various crafts, and complex automata, demonstrating his unwavering interest in engineering and the application of scientific principles to practical problems. His mind, ever restless, sought to understand how things worked, how they could be improved, and how the natural world could be mimicked or manipulated through human ingenuity. He also pursued his anatomical studies with a quiet intensity, though perhaps with less access to human cadavers than in his earlier Florentine days. Yet, his existing knowledge and his keen observational skills allowed him to continue theorizing about the human body, its functions, and its intricate systems. The environment of Rome, with its ancient ruins and vibrant contemporary life, offered its own stimuli, feeding his observations on geology, water flow, and the subtle movements of the natural world. Thus, even in a city where his artistic talents were not fully utilized, Leonardo's scientific intellect flourished. His Roman years stand as a testament to his innate drive for understanding, a quiet testament to a mind that found stimulation and purpose in the relentless pursuit of knowledge, regardless of external circumstances. His genius, ever adaptable, continued its profound explorations, even when the grand canvases remained largely untouched. As Leonardo da Vinci moved into the latter stages of his life, a noticeable shift occurred in his artistic output. The prolific completion of paintings that characterized his earlier periods began to diminish significantly, eventually yielding to long stretches where few, if any, major canvases were brought to their final state. This decline was not sudden, but rather a gradual process, influenced by a confluence of factors that redirected his energies and priorities. One significant element contributing to this reduction was the onset of various health issues. While his mind remained sharp and his curiosity undimmed, his physical capabilities were not as robust as they once had been. Accounts suggest a weakening of his right hand, possibly due to a stroke, which would have profoundly impacted his ability to execute the intricate brushwork and detailed studies required for painting. For an artist whose mastery lay in the delicate precision of his hand, and such an impairment would have presented an immense challenge, perhaps leading to a sense of frustration or a pragmatic decision to focus on endeavours less reliant on fine motor skills. Coupled with these physical limitations was an observable shift in his intellectual focus. Leonardo's scientific inquiries, which had always run parallel to his artistic pursuits, began to take precedence. The lure of understanding the natural world, of dissecting, experimenting, and theorizing, increasingly captivated his attention. His notebooks from these later years are brimming with scientific observations, anatomical drawings, engineering designs, and philosophical reflections, often overshadowing the preparatory sketches for paintings. It was as if the universe itself became his canvas, and scientific discovery his primary medium of expression. Furthermore, a subtle disillusionment with the patronage system may have also played a role. Leonardo had experienced the fickle nature of patrons throughout his career, enduring unfulfilled commissions, shifting political landscapes, and the often demanding expectations of those who funded his work. In Rome, he found himself somewhat overshadowed by younger, more fashionable artists like Raphael and Michelangelo, whose styles were perhaps more aligned with the prevailing tastes of the time. This environment may have fostered a quiet detachment from the pressures of artistic production, allowing him to pursue his own intellectual passions without the constant demands for completed masterpieces. The diminishing number of finished paintings in his later years, therefore, was not a sign of a waning intellect, but rather a redirection of a vast and multifaceted genius. His energy was simply channeled into different, yet equally profound avenues of exploration. As Leonardo da Vinci navigated the complex landscape of Roman patronage, a new opportunity began to unfold, one that would lead him away from Italy and towards a different kind of recognition. Around the year 1516, an invitation arrived, not from another Italian city-state, but from the young and ambitious King Francis I of France. This was no ordinary summons. It was a respectful and deliberate overture from a monarch who held the Italian Renaissance, and Leonardo himself, in high esteem. Francis I, a fervent admirer of Italian art and culture, had encountered Leonardo during his military campaigns in Italy, particularly after the French victory at Marignano in 1515. He had been captivated by the artist's intellect, his breadth of knowledge, and the serene authority he exuded. The king recognized in Leonardo not merely a painter, but a polymath, a sage whose wisdom extended far beyond the confines of a canvas. The invitation extended to Leonardo was not to be a mere court artist, tasked with a relentless schedule of commissions. Instead, Francis I offered him the position of premier painter, engineer, and architect to the king. This title carried immense prestige and, more importantly, a remarkable degree of freedom. Leonardo was invited to reside at the elegant manor house of Clos-Lucé, situated just a short distance from the king's own royal chateau of Amboise, nestled in the picturesque Loire Valley. This was an opportunity for Leonardo to live out his final years in comfort and dignity, or largely unfettered by the often burdensome demands of traditional patronage. Francis I sought not to exploit his genius but to honour it, to provide a tranquil environment where Leonardo could continue his studies, experiments, and reflections at his own pace. The king desired his presence as a living embodiment of Renaissance brilliance, a revered intellectual whose very proximity would elevate the French court. It was an invitation born of genuine admiration, a gesture that recognized Leonardo not just for what he could produce, but for who he was, a singular mind of unparalleled depth and vision. Upon accepting the gracious invitation from King Francis I, Leonardo da Vinci journeyed to France, eventually settling into the tranquil surroundings of Clos-Lucé. This charming manor house, nestled near the royal chateau of Amboise, became his final home, a place of peace and profound contemplation during the last 3 years of his remarkable life. Here, he was formally bestowed with the esteemed title of Premier Painter, Engineer, and Architect to the King, a designation that underscored the breadth of his genius and the high regard in which he was held by the young monarch. Life at Clos-Lucé was markedly different from the often frenetic pace of his earlier years in Italy. There were no urgent deadlines for grand altarpieces, no demanding patrons insisting on immediate results, and no political machinations to navigate. Instead, Leonardo found himself in an environment of quiet comfort, where his intellectual pursuits were not merely tolerated but actively encouraged. King Francis I provided him with a generous pension and a serene setting, allowing him the freedom to follow the dictates of his insatiable curiosity wherever they might lead. His days were spent in reflection, organising his vast collection of notes, drawings, and observations. He revised and refined his treatises, meticulously detailing his thoughts on anatomy, hydraulics, mechanics, and the natural world. Though his right hand had been affected by a stroke, limiting his ability to paint, he continued to draw with his left, sketching ideas for new inventions, urban plans, and architectural schemes for the king. Francis I frequently visited him at Clos-Lucé, engaging in long conversations, eager to absorb the wisdom of the aging master. Their relationship transcended that of patron and artist. It was more akin to a bond between a respectful student and a revered teacher. The atmosphere at Clos Lucé fostered a sense of completion, a time for synthesizing a lifetime of learning. Leonardo was surrounded by his closest companions and pupils, including Francesco Melzi, who diligently assisted him in compiling and preserving his immense body of work. This final chapter in France was a period of serene productivity, where the pressures of commission gave way to the quiet pursuit of knowledge, a fitting culmination for a life dedicated to understanding the intricate workings of the universe. During his peaceful final years at Clos Lucé, Leonardo's focus remained steadfastly upon his vast collection of notebooks. These countless pages, filled with observations, theories, and intricate drawings, represented the very essence of his life's inquiry. He dedicated significant time to organizing this immense intellectual legacy, often dictating his thoughts to his faithful assistant Francesco Melzi, as his own hand grew less capable. This methodical arrangement was not merely a tidy-up. It was an attempt to distill and synthesize the disparate threads of his knowledge into a cohesive understanding of the world. His final scientific musings encompassed the grandest scales of existence. He revisited his contemplations on cosmology, pondering the movements of celestial bodies, the nature of light, and the boundless expanse of the universe. His mind, ever restless, sought to grasp the underlying principles that governed these cosmic dances, relating them back to the intricate mechanics he observed on Earth. The flow of water, the erosion of mountains, the growth of plants, all were seen as interconnected phenomena within a single elegant system. Leonardo also delved deeply into the human condition, reflecting on the mysteries of life, consciousness, and the ephemeral nature of existence. His anatomical studies, though detailed and objective, always carried an undercurrent of philosophical wonder, seeking to understand the soul through the intricate machinery of the body. He mused on the power of the human mind, its capacity for invention and destruction, and its unique place within the natural order. These late reflections, scattered throughout his notebooks, represent a quiet culmination of a lifetime spent observing, questioning, and theorizing. They reveal a man who, even in his declining years, had never ceased to marvel at the universe and strive for a more profound comprehension of its secrets. His final thoughts were not of an end, but of an eternal cycle, a continuous unfolding of natural wonders. When Leonardo journeyed from Italy to France in 1516, he did not travel lightly. Among his most treasured possessions were several of his completed and unfinished artworks, which he carefully transported across the Alps. This journey was not merely a change of residence for the artist. It was also a quiet migration for some of the most profound artistic creations of the Renaissance. The winding mountain passes and the long roads led these canvases to a new home, far from their Italian origins. Foremost among these was the enigmatic portrait known as the Mona Lisa. This painting, which Leonardo had carried with him for years, was deeply personal to him. He had never truly relinquished it to its original patron, instead choosing to keep it close, continuously refining its subtle nuances. Its presence in his luggage symbolized not only its artistic value, but also its profound significance within his own creative journey. The soft gaze and gentle smile of the sitter, rendered with such innovative sfumato, would soon become a permanent fixture in a foreign land. Accompanying the Mona Lisa were other important works, including St. John the Baptist and the Virgin and Child with St. Anne. These pieces too were carefully packed and brought to France, reflecting King Francis I's deep admiration for Leonardo's genius across his artistic output. The king was not merely inviting a man, he was welcoming an entire artistic legacy into his kingdom. The arrival of these paintings marked a pivotal moment, subtly shifting the artistic landscape of the French court. Upon his arrival at Clos-Lucé, these masterpieces became part of the French royal collection. King Francis I, a discerning patron of the arts, acquired them directly from Leonardo, solidifying their place within the burgeoning royal treasury. The Mona Lisa, in particular, was destined for an extraordinary future, eventually becoming one of the most celebrated artworks in the world. Its quiet journey across the continent was, in retrospect, the first step in its transformation from a personal portrait into a global icon. It settled into its new environment, a silent testament to the enduring power of Leonardo's vision, far from the bustling streets of Florence where it had first begun to take shape. In the quiet confines of Clos-Lucé, Leonardo's final years were not spent in solitude, but rather in the gentle company of those who had remained loyal to him through the decades. His household in France was small, yet it provided a comforting environment, a familiar echo of the workshops he'd maintained in Italy. These companions offered not only practical assistance, but also the warmth of enduring human connection, a steady presence in his diminishing days. Among them was Gian Giacomo Caprotti d'Aureno, known affectionately as Salai. He had entered Leonardo's life as a young boy, a mischievous and often troublesome apprentice, but over time he had become a steadfast presence. Salai's relationship with Leonardo was a long and complex one, marked by both exasperation and deep affection. He was more than a servant. He was a constant, a familiar figure, a thread connecting Leonardo's present to his distant past. Though perhaps not a great artist himself, Salai's loyalty and companionship were invaluable in these twilight years. Equally significant was Francesco Melzi, a nobleman's son who had joined Leonardo's studio as a young man and quickly became his most devoted and capable student. Melzi was not only a talented artist, but also a meticulous scholar, sharing Leonardo's intellectual curiosity. In France, Melzi became Leonardo's primary assistant, helping him organize his vast collection of notebooks and drawings. Their relationship was one of profound mutual respect and intellectual exchange. Melzi served as Leonardo's hands and eyes when his own began to fail, diligently transcribing thoughts and observations, ensuring that the master's legacy would be preserved. The presence of Salai and Melzi created a small, intimate circle around Leonardo, a haven of friendship and shared purpose. There was a quiet rhythm to their days at Clos-Lucé, filled with the rustle of turning pages, the soft scratching of a pen, and the murmured conversations about art, science, and the mysteries of the natural world. These companions provided a sense of continuity and comfort, allowing Leonardo to focus on his final contemplative work, knowing that he was not alone. Their loyalty formed a gentle embrace around his final chapter, a testament to the enduring bonds forged over a lifetime of shared endeavour. The final moments of Leonardo da Vinci arrived with a quiet dignity on May 2nd, 1519, within the walls of Clos-Lucé. It was a peaceful passing, far removed from the bustling Italian cities where he had spent so much of his active life. He died in the arms of his devoted companion Francesco Melzi, a testament to the deep bond they had forged. The exact circumstances of his final illness remain somewhat indistinct in historical records, but it is understood that his health had been in gradual decline, a natural progression of age and the physical toll of a life lived with such intense intellectual and artistic exertion. His death was not marked by widespread public mourning across Europe, for his most profound impact was yet to be fully understood. At the time of his passing, many of his greatest works were still scattered, his scientific treatises largely unread by the wider world. Yet, within his immediate circle, the loss was deeply felt. Francesco Melzi, who had been a son to him in all but name, bore the weight of grief and responsibility. He would become the primary custodian of Leonardo's immense legacy, the notebooks, drawings, and unfinished manuscripts that represented a lifetime of inquiry. King Francis I, Leonardo's patron in these final years, expressed his sorrow, recognizing the departure of a truly exceptional mind. Though the popular anecdote of Leonardo dying in the king's arms is likely a romanticized embellishment, it reflects the genuine respect and admiration Francis held for the Italian master. The king understood that he had hosted not merely an artist, but a singular intellect whose breadth of knowledge transcended any single discipline. In the days immediately following his death, the quiet process of settling his affairs began. His will, drawn up shortly before his passing, meticulously outlined the distribution of his belongings, ensuring that his loyal companions and servants were provided for. Melzi inherited the vast majority of his artistic and scientific papers, a trust that would shape the understanding of Leonardo for centuries to come. This careful arrangement, though seemingly mundane, marked the quiet dawn of Leonardo's enduring legacy, for it was through Melzi's careful stewardship that the scattered fragments of genius would eventually begin to be assembled, revealing the true scope of his universal mind to future generations. Following Leonardo da Vinci's peaceful passing, the responsibility for his vast intellectual estate fell squarely upon the shoulders of Francesco Melzi. It was a monumental inheritance, encompassing not only personal effects but, certainly more significantly, the countless pages of notebooks, drawings, and manuscripts that represented the culmination of Leonardo's lifelong investigations. This collection, a sprawling testament to his insatiable curiosity, included observations on anatomy, engineering, botany, geology, optics, and art theory, all meticulously recorded in his distinctive mirror script. Melzi, a young nobleman from Milan who had joined Leonardo's household as a pupil and assistant, had remained faithfully by his side for many years. He was more than just an apprentice. He was a confidant and a devoted companion, deeply familiar with the breadth and depth of Leonardo's work. This intimate understanding proved to be profoundly significant. Without Melzi's dedication, the extraordinary collection of papers might well have been fragmented and lost to time. He is dispersed among various heirs or simply discarded by those who did not comprehend their immense value. Leonardo's will explicitly bequeathed to Melzi all and singular the books, instruments and portraits, and designs pertinent to his art and industry. This clear directive ensured that the core of Leonardo's intellectual output remained intact, at least initially. Melzi transported these precious materials back to his family villa in Vapriodada, near Milan, where he dedicated himself to their care and organization. His role was crucial, acting as a direct link between Leonardo's mind and future generations. He understood that these notebooks were not merely jottings, but a coherent, albeit unorganized, body of knowledge. He recognized the profound importance of these documents, and even if the world at large did not yet fully grasp their significance. Melzi's careful preservation, though it did not immediately lead to widespread publication, prevented the immediate dispersal and potential destruction of what would eventually be recognized as one of humanity's most extraordinary intellectual treasures. His actions laid the foundational groundwork for the eventual study and appreciation of Leonardo's multifaceted genius. In the immediate wake of Leonardo da Vinci's passing, his reputation as a supreme artist was already firmly established. His masterpieces such as the Mona Lisa, the Last Supper, and Virgin of the Rocks were celebrated and revered. Contemporaries like Giorgio Vasari, in his lives of the most excellent painters, sculptors and architects, lauded Leonardo's artistic genius, placing him at the pinnacle of Renaissance achievement. His innovative techniques, his profound understanding of human anatomy as applied to painting, and his ability to imbue his subjects with a captivating sense of life and emotion were all deeply admired. However, this widespread recognition for his artistic prowess stood in stark contrast to the fate of his scientific and engineering investigations. The vast collection of notebooks and drawings, so painstakingly preserved by Francesco Melzi, remained largely unseen by the world beyond a small circle of scholars and enthusiasts. These thousands of pages, filled with groundbreaking observations and designs across numerous disciplines, did not find a wider audience for centuries. The primary reason for this obscurity was that Leonardo himself had never published his scientific findings. His ideas, though revolutionary, remained locked within his personal script and his private collection. The scientific community of the time, operating through academies and published treatises, had no access to his extensive research. Thus, while his paintings continued to inspire awe and imitation, his profound insights into aerodynamics, hydraulics, human anatomy, and geology lay dormant, unintegrated into the broader intellectual currents of the age. For generations, Leonardo was primarily remembered as a painter, a sculptor, and an architect, a master of the visual arts. The true extent of his polymathic genius, the meticulous observations of the natural world, and the ingenious mechanical designs that filled his notebooks would have to await a much later era to be fully discovered, deciphered, and appreciated. His scientific legacy was destined for a prolonged slumber, gradually emerging into public consciousness over many centuries, transforming the understanding of his extraordinary mind. Francesco Melzi, Leonardo's devoted heir, carefully guarded the vast collection of notebooks at his villa in Vaprio d'Adda for over 5 decades. He understood their profound value, meticulously organizing the unbound pages and ensuring their safety. This period represented a crucial phase of preservation, a quiet stewardship that prevented the immediate loss of these invaluable documents. However, upon Melzi's own death in 1570, the fate of Leonardo's intellectual legacy took a less predictable turn. Melzi's heirs, perhaps not fully grasping the immense historical and scientific importance of the manuscripts, did not maintain the same diligent care. The unified collection began to break apart. Some volumes were inherited by Melzi's son, Orazio, who subsequently sold or gave away portions of the collection. Others found their way into the hands of various collectors, scholars, and curious individuals across Europe, often through less formal channels. This dispersal was a slow, gradual process, unfolding over many decades. Volumes were separated, individual pages were sometimes removed and traded, and the original coherence of Leonardo's thought, as he had intended it, was slowly eroded. Many notebooks simply vanished from historical record for extended periods, their contents unknown and their whereabouts a mystery. It was a quiet tragedy of lost knowledge, as insights that could have advanced science and technology centuries earlier remained hidden, sometimes for centuries, was within private libraries or dusty archives. The process of rediscovery was equally gradual and piecemeal. Scholars and enthusiasts, often in later centuries, would stumble upon fragments of the collection in unexpected places, recognizing Leonardo's distinctive hand and his mirrored script. This scattering meant that no single individual or institution held the complete record of his scientific mind. Each fragment, when found, offered a tantalizing glimpse into his vast intellectual universe, but the full picture remained elusive, fractured across the continent. The loss of these irreplaceable pages represents a silence in the historical record, a testament to the fragile nature of intellectual inheritance when not universally understood and protected. For centuries, Leonardo da Vinci remained primarily known as a painter, a master of the brush whose enigmatic smiles and dynamic compositions captivated the imagination. His scientific endeavours, meticulously recorded in thousands of pages of notebooks, largely lay dormant, scattered and unread. The true breadth of his genius, the depth of his understanding of the natural world, and the visionary scope of his engineering concepts remained obscured, locked away in mirrored script and complex diagrams. The slow awakening to Leonardo's scientific prowess began in earnest during the 19th century. As the Enlightenment gave way to a burgeoning scientific age, there arose a renewed curiosity about the polymaths of the past. Scholars began to piece together the dispersed manuscripts, recognizing the profound insights contained within. Their early efforts involved painstakingly transcribing the often challenging handwriting and attempting to categorize the diverse subject matter, which ranged from anatomy and botany to optics and fluid dynamics. It was in the late 19th and early 20th centuries that the systematic study and publication of Leonardo's notebooks truly gathered momentum. Pioneering figures dedicated years to the monumental task of collating, translating, and interpreting the vast collection. Volumes like Jean-Paul Richter's The Literary Works of Leonardo da Vinci, first published in 1883, provided the wider academic world with unprecedented access to his thoughts. These publications revealed a mind centuries ahead of its time, sketching out flying machines, anticipating principles of geology, and meticulously documenting human anatomy with a precision unmatched until much later. The 20th century further solidified this understanding. As technology advanced, historians and scientists could better appreciate the accuracy of his observations and the ingenuity of his designs. His studies of bird flight, for example, were seen not merely as fanciful drawings, but as serious attempts to understand aerodynamics. His anatomical drawings, once viewed as curiosities, were recognized for their groundbreaking detail and clarity. This period marked a profound shift in perception, transforming Leonardo from solely a brilliant artist into a foundational figure in the history of science and engineering, a visionary whose ideas, though unfulfilled in his own lifetime, held remarkable foresight. Leonardo da Vinci stands as the quintessential embodiment of the Renaissance ideal, the universal genius, the polymath whose boundless curiosity transcended the conventional boundaries of his era. He did not perceive art and science as distinct disciplines, but rather as interconnected facets of a single, unified quest for understanding the world. For Leonardo, observation was the fundamental tool, whether he was studying the flight of a bird, the flow of water, or the subtle play of light on a human face. His notebooks reveal a mind that moved effortlessly between disciplines. A page might contain detailed anatomical sketches alongside architectural designs, followed by musings on the nature of colour or the mechanics of a proposed flying machine. This seamless integration was not merely a characteristic of his work, it was the very essence of his intellectual approach. He believed that to truly understand the human form for a painting, one must first comprehend its underlying skeletal and muscular structure. To depict a landscape accurately, one needed to grasp the geological forces that shaped it, and the atmospheric effects that altered its appearance. Leonardo's artistic masterpieces are imbued with scientific precision, while his scientific investigations are often presented with an artist's eye for detail and beauty. The subtle sfumato of the Mona Lisa, for instance, reflects his deep understanding of optics and atmospheric perspective, creating an illusion of depth and life that was both artistic innovation and a scientific application. Conversely, his anatomical drawings, while serving scientific inquiry, yes, possess an aesthetic quality that elevates them beyond mere diagrams. He sought to uncover the underlying principles of existence, whether through the delicate rendering of a flower, the engineering of a canal, or the philosophical contemplation of the universe. This holistic view, where every observation, every experiment, and every creative act contributed to a grander comprehension, defines him as the ultimate Renaissance man. He did not specialize, but rather synthesized, demonstrating that the pursuit of knowledge in all its forms leads to a richer and more profound understanding of reality. Among Leonardo da Vinci's vast and varied output, it is his select artistic masterpieces that have resonated most profoundly through the centuries, captivating viewers and inspiring countless artists. These works possess a quiet, timeless appeal, their enduring power lying in their subtle complexity and profound human insight. The Mona Lisa, perhaps the most famous painting in the world, continues to draw pilgrims from across the globe. Her enigmatic smile, rendered with Leonardo's revolutionary sfumato technique, creates an illusion of life and movement, a psychological depth that transcends a mere portrait. The subtle gradations of light and shadow, the delicate blurring of contours, invite endless contemplation, making her presence feel both immediate and ethereal. It is a work that does not demand attention with bold declarations, but rather draws one in with a gentle, persistent mystery, reflecting a profound understanding of human emotion and perception. The Last Supper, a monumental fresco in Milan, captures a moment of intense drama and psychological revelation. Despite the challenges of its experimental medium and subsequent deterioration, the emotional resonance of the apostles' reactions to Christ's announcement remains palpable. Leonardo's masterful composition organizes the figures into expressive groups, each face a study in human response: doubt, anger, sorrow, loyalty. It is a work that redefined religious painting, moving beyond static iconography to a dynamic portrayal of human experience, influencing generations of artists in its narrative power and emotional depth. Then there is the Virgin of the Rocks, with its two distinct versions, both displaying Leonardo's innovative approach to composition and light. The figures are bathed in a soft, ethereal glow, emerging from a mysterious, cavernous landscape. The delicate interplay of gestures and gazes creates a sense of tender intimacy and sacred connection. The meticulously rendered botanical details and geological formations in the background speak to his scientific observations, grounding the spiritual in the natural world. This painting showcases his ability to blend idealized beauty with a palpable sense of reality, creating an atmosphere of serene contemplation. These masterpieces, though few in number, stand as pillars of Western art. They speak a universal language of beauty, emotion, and intellectual inquiry, continuing to shape our understanding of artistic possibility. Their quiet intensity and profound humanity ensure their indelible place in the history of human creativity, continuing to inspire awe and reflection across the ages. Beyond his celebrated canvases, Leonardo da Vinci possessed a profound scientific vision that often placed him centuries ahead of his era. His notebooks reveal a mind relentlessly pursuing truth through observation and experimentation, a quiet, solitary quest for understanding the fundamental principles governing the natural world. He did not merely observe, he sought to comprehend the underlying mechanics, the intricate systems that dictated phenomena. His studies in anatomy, for instance, were astonishingly detailed and accurate, far surpassing the understanding of his contemporaries. His dissections, often performed in secret, allowed him to map the human body with an unprecedented precision. He illustrated muscles, bones, organs, and even the circulatory system with an artist's eye for form and a scientist's demand for exactitude. These anatomical drawings, had they been published, would have revolutionized medical knowledge long before Vesalius. In the realm of engineering, Leonardo conceived of flying machines, including prototypes for helicopters and parachutes, at a time when human flight was a distant dream. His designs for bridges, fortifications, and hydraulic systems demonstrate a sophisticated grasp of mechanics and physics. He understood the principles of aerodynamics and hydrodynamics, sketching complex gears, levers, and mechanisms that would only be realized with later technological advancements. His detailed studies of water flow, erosion, and geological strata foreshadowed modern hydrology and geology. His observations of light, optics, and perspective were not merely for artistic application, but stemmed from a deep curiosity about how vision worked and how light interacted with surfaces. He meticulously documented the flight of birds, analysing wing movements and air currents, seeking to unlock the secrets of natural locomotion. This solitary pursuit of knowledge, often without the immediate validation of peers or patrons, speaks to an intrinsic drive for understanding. Leonardo's scientific insights were not born from a desire for fame or fortune, but from an insatiable, quiet yearning to uncover the hidden order of the universe. His notebooks stand as a testament to a mind that saw connections where others saw only separate phenomena, a vision that truly transcended his time. Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks are a quiet testament to an extraordinary engineering mind, filled with designs that resonate with the inventions of much later centuries. His approach to problem-solving was visionary, often conceiving solutions to challenges that would not be fully understood or technically feasible for hundreds of years. He thought deeply about function and form, meticulously drawing and annotating his ideas. Among his most famous yet unbuilt concepts were his flying machines. Long before the Wright brothers, Leonardo meticulously studied the mechanics of bird flight, sketching ornithopters with flapping wings and even a helical air screw that bears a striking resemblance to a modern helicopter rotor. He designed a parachute, understanding the principles of air resistance and controlled descent, a concept that would only be successfully tested centuries later. These were not mere fanciful drawings, but detailed studies, demonstrating a profound grasp of aerodynamics and material stress. Beyond the realm of flight, his engineering prowess extended to countless other areas. He designed elaborate hydraulic systems for canals and irrigation, demonstrating an advanced understanding of fluid dynamics. His plans for bridges included innovative structures, some of which incorporated principles of modularity and prefabrication. He sketched complex mechanical devices, from multi-stage gears and ball bearings to automated looms, anticipating the Industrial Revolution's intricate machinery. His military engineering designs were equally inventive, though thankfully many were never realized. He conceived of armored vehicles, giant crossbows, and even breech-loading cannons, were all demonstrating a keen understanding of ballistics and strategic advantage. These designs, while often for warfare, underscore his ability to apply scientific principles to practical, large-scale problems. Leonardo's quiet, analytical mind approached each engineering challenge with a blend of curiosity and precision. He sought to understand how things worked, not just to build them, but to perfect them in concept. The echoes of his designs can be seen in modern technology, confirming his place as an engineer whose foresight truly stretched across the centuries, a quiet genius whose visions continue to inspire. Of all the remarkable facets of Leonardo da Vinci's expansive intellect, perhaps his most enduring and universal legacy is the profound power of meticulous observation. He taught, not through direct instruction to the masses, but through the silent, eloquent example of his own life and work, the fundamental importance of truly seeing the world around us. His approach was not merely to glance, but to gaze, to record, and to question with an open and unburdened mind. Leonardo's notebooks, filled with countless drawings and annotations, are a testament to this philosophy. Whether he was depicting the delicate curl of a leaf, the complex musculature of the human hand, the intricate flow of water, or the subtle expressions on a human face, his method was consistent. He would observe, sketch from multiple angles, annotate with questions, and then reflect upon his findings. This continuous cycle of looking, analysing, and synthesizing was the bedrock of his genius. He encouraged a deep engagement with reality, and urging one to move beyond superficial appearances to uncover the underlying structures and forces at play. For Leonardo, observation was not a passive act, but an active, investigative process. It was through this lens that he saw the interconnectedness of all things, how the swirling patterns in water mirrored the eddies in hair, or how the anatomy of a bird informed the design of a flying machine. This legacy extends far beyond the realms of art or science. It is a fundamental approach to understanding, a quiet invitation to cultivate a sense of wonder and inquiry in everyday life. Leonardo demonstrated that by slowing down, by truly focusing our attention, we can unlock deeper layers of meaning and beauty in even the most ordinary phenomena. His life's work whispers a timeless message: to look closely, to question everything, and to allow the world to reveal its intricate truths through patient, unbiased perception. This quiet authority of observation remains one of his most precious gifts to future generations. From his earliest days in Vinci to his final serene moments in Amboise, Leonardo da Vinci's entire existence was a continuous journey of unceasing inquiry and exploration. His life was not defined by a singular pursuit or a fixed destination, but by an insatiable curiosity, an endlessly burning desire to understand the fundamental nature of the world around him. This quiet, persistent quest for knowledge was the driving force behind all his endeavours, whether artistic, scientific, or mechanical. He approached every subject with a fresh mind, unburdened by dogma or conventional wisdom. The flight of a bird, the anatomy of a human limb, the geology of a landscape, the mathematics of sound, the properties of light, each presented an opportunity for deeper investigation. His notebooks, filled with questions, hypotheses, and experimental designs, stand as a testament to this relentless intellectual pursuit. They reveal a mind constantly seeking to penetrate the surface of phenomena, to uncover the hidden mechanisms and principles that govern existence. This lifelong commitment to learning was not driven by a desire for fame or wealth, but by an intrinsic love of understanding itself. He found profound satisfaction in unravelling mysteries, in connecting seemingly disparate fields of knowledge, and in documenting his findings with painstaking precision. Even in his later years, when artistic commissions diminished, his intellectual curiosity remained vibrant, thus leading him to organise his vast collection of thoughts and observations, ensuring their preservation for future contemplation. Leonardo's life quietly demonstrates the power of sustained intellectual engagement. He shows us that the journey of inquiry is itself the reward, a gentle, ongoing process of discovery that enriches the mind and expands the spirit. His example invites us to embrace our own curiosities, to ask questions without fear, and to find quiet joy in the continuous exploration of the world's endless wonders. Beyond the grand titles of artist, scientist, and inventor, Leonardo da Vinci was, at his core, a human being of quiet dedication. He was a man who experienced the ebb and flow of daily life, the subtle satisfactions of focused work, and the occasional frustrations that accompany any profound creative or intellectual endeavour. To understand him fully is to gently remove the layers of myth and legend that have accumulated over centuries, revealing the individual who walked the earth. He was not a mythical figure, but a person driven by an unwavering curiosity, a profound insight into the natural world, and a steadfast commitment to his observations. His notebooks, filled with exquisite drawings and meticulous notes, also contain reflections on his own challenges, his incomplete projects, and the shifting political landscapes that influenced his patronage. These personal touches humanize him, showing a man who grappled with the practicalities of life while simultaneously reaching for the sublime. One can imagine him in his workshop, surrounded by sketches and models, and sometimes lost in thought, sometimes meticulously grinding pigments, or carefully dissecting an anatomical specimen. His dedication was not always met with instant success. Some projects languished, others were abandoned, yet his drive to understand and create never truly wandered. He sought beauty in form and function, in the curve of a muscle and the mechanism of a gear. His profound insight allowed him to perceive connections that others missed, bridging art and science with an effortless grace. Yet, this insight was the product of immense effort, of countless hours spent observing, drawing, and reflecting. Leonardo da Vinci, the man, was a testament to the power of sustained intellectual and creative engagement, a gentle reminder that even the most extraordinary achievements are rooted in human effort, quiet dedication, and an enduring wonder at the world. Even across the expanse of 5 centuries, the figure of Leonardo da Vinci maintains a profound and quiet resonance. His relevance to our contemporary world is not merely historical, but deeply current, offering a gentle inspiration for navigating the complexities of modern existence. At the heart of his enduring appeal lies his unwavering commitment to an interdisciplinary approach, a seamless blending of art and science, observation and imagination. In an age often characterized by specialization, Leonardo's holistic method serves as a gentle reminder of the interconnectedness of all knowledge. He understood that true comprehension often emerges from the synthesis of disparate fields, from allowing the insights of one discipline to illuminate another. This fluid movement between artistic expression and scientific inquiry, between the study of anatomy and the rendering of a landscape, offers a timeless model for comprehensive understanding. Furthermore, his notebooks reveal an early, almost prescient awareness of environmental principles. His studies of water flow, erosion, and the delicate balance of ecosystems suggest a deep respect for the natural world and an understanding of its intricate systems. This quiet ecological consciousness, born from meticulous observation, resonates powerfully today as humanity grapples with its relationship to the planet. He did not merely depict nature, he sought to comprehend its underlying mechanisms, seeing beauty in its processes as much as in its forms. Leonardo's relentless pursuit of both beauty and truth, often intertwined, thus continues to inspire. He believed that beauty was inherent in the harmonious order of the universe, and that truth was revealed through diligent inquiry and objective observation. This dual quest, for aesthetic perfection and verifiable understanding, elevates his work beyond mere technical skill, imbuing it with a universal and timeless quality. He remains a quiet beacon, not for his mythical status, but for the very human qualities that drove him: an insatiable curiosity, a rigorous intellect, and a profound appreciation for the world's intricate wonders. His life quietly suggests that the most profound insights often arise from a patient, open-minded engagement with reality, and that the boundaries between artistic creation and scientific discovery are often artificial, waiting to be gently dissolved. In his example, we find a gentle encouragement to look deeper, to question more broadly, and to embrace the full spectrum of human potential. The life of Leonardo da Vinci, when viewed through the lens of history, does not thunder with dramatic pronouncements, but rather resonates as a quiet whisper, a gentle yet profound voice carried across the centuries. His impact, though immense, did not arrive with a sudden clamour, but spread like ripples on a calm pond, slowly expanding, touching distant shores and subtly shaping the intellectual currents that followed. This enduring influence is a testament to the timelessness of his spirit. It is found not just in the visible masterpieces that grace museum walls, nor solely in the detailed schematics hidden within his notebooks, but in the very approach to knowledge that he embodied. It is the quiet suggestion that deep observation, relentless questioning, and an open mind can unlock the universe's most intricate secrets. Leonardo's genius was not a fleeting spark, but a sustained, deliberate flame, fueled by an insatiable desire to understand. This dedication, this patient persistence, is perhaps his most potent legacy. It reminds us that true understanding is often a slow process, a gradual accumulation of insights, rather than an instantaneous revelation. His spirit, therefore, transcends the specific inventions or artworks for which he is celebrated. It resides in the encouragement to look beyond the surface, to connect seemingly disparate ideas, and to approach the world with a sense of wonder that never dulls. It is a spirit that invites quiet contemplation, urging us to engage with the world not just through our hands or our intellect, but with our entire being. In the quiet echoes of his life, we hear a gentle affirmation of the human capacity for endless curiosity, for artistic expression, and for scientific discovery. It is a whisper that continues to inspire, subtly guiding those who seek to bridge the worlds of art and science, and to find beauty in the pursuit of truth, long after his physical presence faded into history. As the narrative of Leonardo da Vinci's life gently settles, we are invited now into a moment of quiet contemplation. Let us consider with a peaceful mind the sheer vastness of his intellectual landscape, a mind that spanned the known world and dared to imagine beyond it. It is a journey we have taken together, moving through the fertile fields of his artistry and the intricate pathways of his scientific inquiry, observing the quiet dedication that defined his every pursuit. Take a moment to reflect upon the depth of his contributions, not merely as isolated achievements, but as interconnected threads woven into a rich tapestry of understanding. From the delicate brushstrokes that captured the human soul to the meticulous diagrams that sought to unravel the mechanics of flight, each endeavour was a facet of a singular, overarching quest for truth and beauty. His was a mind that saw no firm divisions between disciplines, perceiving instead a unified whole, where art illuminated science and science informed art. Allow the quiet weight of this realization to settle. Consider the patience inherent in his anatomical studies, the hours spent observing the subtle interplay of muscle and bone. Reflect upon the profound observation embedded in his landscape drawings, capturing the very essence of a river's flow or a mountain's form. Each act was an embrace of the world's complexity, undertaken with a calm intensity that sought not to conquer, but to comprehend. This moment of peaceful reflection offers an opportunity to appreciate the profound impact of a life lived with such unwavering curiosity. It is a chance to absorb the quiet lessons embedded in his story, the value of persistence, the power of observation, and the enduring beauty of an open, inquiring mind. His legacy is not a relic of the past, but an invitation to engage with our own world with similar depth and wonder. Let us hold this contemplation, allowing the gentle resonance of his genius to linger, a calming presence in the quiet space of thought. As we reflect upon the vast body of work left by Leonardo da Vinci, it becomes clear that his life, in many ways, resembles an unfinished symphony. Many of his projects, both artistic and scientific, remained incomplete, their final notes never played, their full forms never realized. Yet, this should not be viewed through the lens of failure or frustration. Instead, these unfinished aspects stand as profound testaments to the boundless nature of his imagination and the sheer impossibility of one lifetime fully capturing the torrent of his ideas. Consider, the Adoration of the Magi, a painting rich with preparatory sketches and underpaintings, revealing the intricate layers of his thought, but never brought to its ultimate conclusion. Or the ambitious Sforza horse, a monumental sculpture envisioned in clay, only to be destroyed before it could be cast in bronze. These were not abandoned due to a lack of dedication, but often due to the overwhelming scope of his conceptualization, the shifting demands of patrons, or the sheer number of other compelling inquiries vying for his attention. His notebooks, brimming with sketches of flying machines, intricate anatomical studies, and complex hydraulic systems, often contain detailed plans that were never fully executed. Each page hints at a project, a theory or an invention that might have been a quiet echo of a concept too grand, too revolutionary, or simply too numerous for a single individual to manifest entirely. This quiet acceptance of incompleteness is a significant aspect of understanding Leonardo. It speaks to a mind so fertile, so relentlessly curious, that it was perpetually moving forward, exploring new avenues even as others remained partially charted. His unfinished works invite us not to mourn what was lost, but to marvel at the sheer scale of his vision, recognizing that the journey of discovery often leaves traces rather than definitive endpoints. They are not absences, but rather whispers of infinite possibility, urging us to consider the richness of potential that resided within him. As the quiet echoes of Leonardo da Vinci's life begin to recede, we are left not with a thunderous declaration, but with a gentle and persistent presence in the grand tapestry of human history. His legacy does not demand attention with a loud fanfare, but rather invites contemplation through its subtle, enduring influence. It is a legacy that settles softly, like dust motes in a sunbeam, revealing the intricate patterns of thought and observation he left behind. His masterpieces of art, from the enigmatic smile of the Mona Lisa to the solemn drama of the Last Supper, continue to draw us into their depths, speaking across centuries in a language of colour, form, and human emotion. They are not merely paintings. They are invitations to perceive the world with greater sensitivity, to notice the nuanced interplay of light and shadow, and to ponder the inner lives of those depicted. Beyond the brushstrokes, his notebooks, filled with meticulous drawings and flowing script, serve as a quiet testament to a mind that never ceased to question, to dissect, to understand. These pages, once scattered and largely unread, now offer a window into a universe of ideas, again where art and science danced in perfect harmony. They whisper of a relentless curiosity that saw no boundaries between disciplines, a spirit of inquiry that remains profoundly relevant in our own time. Leonardo's true impact, then, resides in this enduring whisper, a quiet encouragement to look closer, to think deeper, to connect disparate realms of knowledge. His life reminds us that true genius often manifests not in grand pronouncements, but in the patient, diligent work of observation and creation. It is a legacy that does not demand our adulation, but gently guides us towards a richer appreciation of the world's intricate beauty and the boundless potential of the human mind. And so, the narrative of Leonardo da Vinci's life softly fades, leaving behind a lasting impression, a quiet inspiration that continues to resonate through the ages, a timeless presence in the quiet corners of our collective consciousness. His journey concludes, yet his gentle influence perpetually unfolds. As the narrative of Leonardo da Vinci's extraordinary life gently settles, we can allow its quiet echoes to softly recede. The meticulous observations, the visionary designs, the artistic masterpieces, they all begin to blend into a single, harmonious hum. The vast expanse of his curiosity, his unwavering dedication to understanding the world, now drifts into the realm of quiet contemplation. Each invention, each drawing, each stroke of genius now forms a part of a larger serene tapestry, inviting a state of deep relaxation. The complexities of his mind, the profound insights he gleaned, the timeless beauty he created, and slowly dissolve into the stillness of the present moment. There is no need for haste, no urgency in these final moments. Only the lingering impression of a life lived with boundless inquiry and infinite wonder. The weight of history, the intricate details of a bygone era, now gently lift, leaving behind only a sense of calm and a quiet appreciation for the journey we've shared. Allow the quiet echoes of Leonardo's world to merge with the peaceful rhythm of your own breath. The Renaissance master, with his unceasing quest for knowledge and beauty, now drifts into the background, a soft, enduring presence. His story has been told, its intricate threads carefully laid out. Now, as the final thoughts begin to fade, let the mind simply rest. The quiet wisdom of his life, the vastness of his contributions, they are slowly become a part of the stillness that surrounds you. Drift peacefully, carrying the gentle echoes of a truly remarkable mind. Allow sleep to softly embrace you as the long story of Leonardo da Vinci finds its tranquil conclusion,